Chapter 163. Star City Zoo. Tan Xiao was holding Gu Yin's little hand as they strolled along the bamboo forest trail in the zoo. In the afternoon, Tan Xiao told Gu Yin that he would take her out to play. She immediately happily agreed, but she didn't like going to the amusement park and wanted to go to the zoo instead. To make her happy, Tan Xiao naturally complied with her wishes. "Can I ask you a question?" A smile hung on Gu Yin's small face as she said, "Please ask, master." Tan Xiao asked, "Other children like amusement parks, but why do you like the zoo?" "Those small animals are very cute, but I don't think there's much difference between watching them on TV and seeing them with my own eyes, right?" The smile on Gu Yin's small face quickly disappeared as a sad look flashed in her eyes. But she still spoke with a strong voice. "My dad promised me that he would take me to the zoo in the future. But he never took me there until he died." Tan Xiao suddenly understood and gently squeezed her small hand to comfort her. Gu Yin raised her small face as a smile returned to her face and said, "Master, everyone says that a master for a day is a father for life. You've been my master for a long time, and in Yinin's heart, you're my dad. I have no regrets in my heart since you took me to the zoo." Tan Xiao's heart warmed. He reached out to hug her and said with a smile, "My Yinin is very sensible. Let master kiss you." Gu Yin's laughter was as sweet as a silver bell as it fluttered in the bamboo forest. Ring, ring, ring. The mobile phone in Tan Xiao's pocket suddenly rang. Tan Xiao hugged Gu Yin with one hand and took out his mobile with the other. After looking at the caller ID, a surprised expression suddenly appeared on his face. "Hello, it's Tan Xiao speaking." Miao Wentong's voice came from the phone. "Tan Xiao, I've done what you asked me to do. I'll be in Star City by tomorrow afternoon at the latest." "You mean, those housekeeper trainers I asked you to find for me?" Tan Xiao asked. "Thank you." Tan Xiao was about to hang up the phone when Miao Wentong's voice was heard again, and his tone was a little hesitant. "Tan Xiao, can you do me a favor? I ran into some trouble recently. Otherwise, I would have arranged everything for you." Tan Xiao asked, "What is it?" Miao Wentong said, "Xiao Mingzhen and I found a sky pit. We suspected that there was a special ore inside, so we explored it several times. However, we returned in failure every time, and we even suffered some injuries. The people we brought along suffered heavy losses." "Sky pit?" Tan Xiao was puzzled. Miao Wentong explained, "A sinkhole is a deep crater formed by a meteorite crashing into Earth. However, there were some problems with the location of the discovery this time. It was in Dongyuan Province's prime forest mountain range. The terrain here was dangerous, and there were venomous snakes and ferocious beasts roaming about. If one was not careful, they would fall into the swamp. Most importantly, there seemed to be a formation inside. We tried to break through it several times and indeed reached the edge of the sky pit. But the location of the sky pit was a steep mountain, and there were a lot of underground passages inside the mountain. In short, the situation here is very complicated." Tan Xiao squinted his eyes. He was now anxious to find the ore materials to refine the interspatial ring, and now there was news about a special ore. Therefore, he didn't hesitate and asked, "Where are you now?" Miao Wentong said, "We're in a small town below Cangbai City in Dongyuan Province. This small town is called Qingshan Town, located near the prime forest mountain range." Tan Xiao said, "I'll immediately rush there after I settle down those foreign housekeeper trainers. However, let's make an agreement in advance. If we get a precious ore, I want it alone." "No problem." Miao Wentong was overjoyed and agreed without hesitation. After ending the call, Tan Xiao put down Gu Yin and said with a smile, "It seems that not only you will be a student in the future, but your mother will also be a student. I found some very powerful teachers for her from abroad." Gu Yin said with a smile, "Mom is definitely not as smart as me." Tan Xiao pinched Gu Yin's small face and said with a smile, "Our family's Yinin is the smartest in the world. Let's go. The lion forest is just ahead, let's go see the lions." For the whole afternoon, Tan Xiao took Gu Yin to the zoo and enjoyed themselves to their heart's content. In the evening, he took Gu Yin to eat at McDonald's and then returned to Southgate Town. At night, Tan Xiao contacted Long Zhengyu and learned that he was drinking in the Long's dining hall, so he immediately rushed there. Those foreign housekeeper trainers would arrive tomorrow, so he needed to arrange their accommodation in advance. Furthermore, it would be best to find a suitable villa in Southgate Town. Neon lights flashed in the Long's dining hall at night, as if a group of stars had fallen to earth. Tan Xiao had been here several times, so he was familiar with the place. The security guard at the gate also had a very good memory. After recognizing Tan Xiao's identity, he directly let him pass. "Boss?" Suddenly, a bewildered voice came from inside the Long's dining hall. Tan Xiao looked toward the source of the voice and found that it turned out to be Andy with a child's face and a Lolita appearance. Slightly nodding, Tan Xiao walked over and asked, "Are you here to have a meal?" Andy wore a very beautiful floral skirt tonight, with her long hair draped over her shoulders. She was wearing a pair of low heels with light makeup on her face. Upon hearing Tan Xiao's inquiry, she giggled and said, "Chief Kong was invited here to participate in the charity party. She doesn't like to bring a male companion, so she asked me to accompany her." "Are you also here to participate in the charity party?" Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "I'm here to look for someone." Andy said with a smile, "Boss, are you looking for a woman? Or a man? You're so outstanding. If you're looking for a woman, I'll be jealous." Tan Xiao let out a faint smile. He had heard about the openness of foreign girls, so he didn't mind Andy's words. Therefore, he didn't take Andy's words seriously. He smiled and said, "The man is my friend. You don't want to participate in the charity party, but what are you doing here? Is the charity party already over?" "The charity party hasn't started yet," said Andy. "It's me who came early, so I'm waiting for Chief Kong here." Tan Xiao said, "If that's the case, then wait for her here. I still have something else to do, so I'll go inside first." Andy quickly said, "Boss, can you take me inside? Although the security guards here let me in, I'm not a member here. They only asked me to wait here, and I'm not allowed to go inside before Chief Kong comes." Tan Xiao was surprised and asked, "They let you enter the gate, but they won't let you go inside?" Andy nodded again and again. With a pitiful look on her face, she said, "Yeah, they won't let me go inside. I had lunch very early, so I'm starving now." Tan Xiao waved his hand at the security guard who kept looking at him. When the security guard quickly came to Tan Xiao, he respectfully said, "How can I help you, sir?" Tan Xiao pointed to Andy and said with a smile, "She's my company's employee, so I'll take her inside." The security guard hesitated and said, "Sir, you've been here before, so I know you. I can let you go inside, but I need to ask for instructions if you want to take someone else with you. I'm looking for Zhengyu Long," said Tan Xiao lightly. The security guard stared blankly for a moment before he quickly showed a more respectful expression and said, "Sir, since you're Chief Long's friend, then you're our VIP here. Please." Tan Xiao nodded and led Andy inside. What Tan Xiao didn't expect was that Andy actually pulled his arm and even made a face at the security guard. "She's just a kid." Tan Xiao felt that Andy's temperament was a bit funny. Quickly, Tan Xiao took Andy to the main building. Looking at the well-dressed guests inside, he secretly sighed inside. For ordinary people who wanted to come to the Long's dining hall, unless they knew some powerful people and followed them, it would be very difficult for them to enter the door, let alone spend money here. The two of them took the elevator to the 16th floor. Tan Xiao looked at Andy and said, "I have some time to talk with my friend, so you can find a place to eat." Andy smiled and asked, "Boss, do you want to reimburse me?" Tan Xiao was at a loss whether he had to laugh or cry as he said, "No need. Just treat it as eating from a rich person. My friend is very rich, so put it on his account. In addition, I'll tell him to find someone to help you apply for a membership card here. In the future, you can come whenever you want." Andy blinked her eyes. Her legs instantly tightened and slightly bent, and then she instantly jumped up. Her height just happened to reach Tan Xiao's face. When Tan Xiao was caught off guard, she kissed his face. When Andy's feet landed on the ground, she beamed with a smile and said, "I knew it. My boss is sent by God to save me. Please let me be your lover. I'll serve you well later." Tan Xiao was dumbfounded. Looking at Andy's cute face, He was shocked by her boldness and straightforwardness. After hesitating for a moment, he raised his hand to touch Andy's forehead. A few seconds later, he muttered to himself, "You don't have a fever. How come you're talking nonsense?" Andy stared with her big round eyes and loudly said, "Boss, I really want to be your lover. Don't think that I'm a casual girl. I'm telling you, I'm still a virgin. If you don't believe me, you can give it a try." Her voice was a bit loud, causing many people in the surroundings to suddenly look at them. When they saw Tan Xiao and Andy, they were first shocked by Andy's angelic and cute appearance. Then, they looked at Tan Xiao with a shocked expression. They really couldn't figure it out. An angelic girl actually clamored to be that boy's lover? What identity did he have? What charm and qualifications did he have? Nearby, a handsome young man happened to pass by the two of them. Upon hearing Andy and Tan Xiao's words, he suddenly stopped. His greedy eyes stared at the two big weapons on Andy's chest and then said, "Little sister, this brat doesn't know how to flirt. It's too boring to be his lover. How about you be this big brother's lover? I promise I'll make you happy." "Pervert." Andy turned her head and glared at the young man. Chapter 164. The young man was called Huang Su, the famous young master of the Huang family in the provincial capital, Blue City. He was also a famous hedonistic son of rich parents. The reason why he came to Star City this time was firstly to see his old friend, and secondly, to see a very famous talent in Star City recently. Upon hearing Andy's cursing, an inconceivable look was revealed in his eyes. He pointed at his nose and asked, "What did you say I am? How am I a rogue? You're clamoring to be another man's lover. This is already an immoral thing. I asked you to be my lover, yet you say I'm a rogue? If I'm a rogue, then what is he?" After saying that, he then pointed at Tan Xiao, feeling depressed inside. Andy turned to look at Tan Xiao. Her eyes sparkled like little stars as she spoke with undisguised liking. "He's my boss, and also my target to develop into a lover. I don't know who you are, but I can assure you that you're absolutely less than 1/10 of my boss. No, it's 1/10,000th. The surrounding guests stopped their footsteps and were ready to watch the show. Upon hearing Andy's words, they couldn't help but burst into laughter. Huang Su's expression was a bit awkward, but he still stuck out his chest and said, "Little pretty girl, you must see clearly that this big brother can come to the Long's dining hall, which means that my identity is not simple. I'm not afraid to tell you that if you go to the provincial capital of Blue City and inquire about my name, everyone in the streets and alleys will know me. If you follow me, you'll definitely eat and drink well. You can sleep until you wake up naturally and count money until your hand cramps. How about it? Not bad, right?" Andy looked at Huang Su with contempt and ridiculed. "Just because you have some stinky money you want to show off? Who do you think you are? The head of the state? Or the richest man in the world? Does the entire Blue City know you? Don't tell me you're Britney Spears?" Bitter. Andy's words were like a knife stabbing into Huang Su's heart, making his complexion turn livid in an instant. Never once in his dreams did he expect that such a delicate and lovely girl as pure as an angel would unexpectedly say such ruthless words. Standing at the side, Tan Xiao gently patted Andy's shoulder as he looked at Huang Su and said, "Get the hell out of here if you don't want to court disaster. We still have things to do. If you want to find someone to play with you, I can give you an idea." Although Huang Su is a debauchee, he is not stupid enough to think that Tan Xiao is easy to bully. After all, those who can come to the Long's dining hall are not easy to deal with. Especially since this place wasn't Blue City, but Star City. As the saying goes, a powerful dragon cannot suppress a local snake. If the identity of the young man in front of him was not ordinary, he would probably be at a disadvantage. And his motto was, "A wise man does not fight when the odds are against him." Therefore, Huang Su looked at Tan Xiao cautiously and asked, "Who are you? You sure talk big." "You don't need to know who I am," said Tan Xiao lightly. "If today's matter is settled, we'll be passers-by A and B, and we'll have nothing to do with each other in the future." Huang Su furrowed his brows and asked in a deep voice, "Then tell me your idea." Tan Xiao said, "If you have excessive hormones, don't casually harass other girls. You can go to the roadside to find a hair salon or a foot wash shop. The prices there are cheap, and there are experienced drivers to serve you. What? Huang Su was dumbfounded. He looked at Tan Xiu with an inconceivable expression. He almost couldn't restrain himself and punched Tan Xiu. What was his identity? Did he need to go to a roadside hair salon? A foot wash shop? If he wanted a woman, he could just beckon his finger and a group of beauties would throw themselves at him, begging him to pamper them. Was this guy's eyesight bad? Or was there something wrong with his brain? Didn't he think before he spoke? Tan Xiu no longer paid attention to Huang Su. He pulled Andy and walked toward the private box where Long Zhenyu was in the corridor. In his opinion, Huang Su was indeed a passerby. Talking to him for a few more words was already a sign that he was looking up to him. Suite A1608. Long Zhenyu was holding a young and beautiful girl in his arms. He was chatting with a young man wearing a flowery vest, big pants, and flip-flops. Inside this suite, there were also dozens of beautiful women. Some of them were laughing together, some were singing with microphones, and some were like little maids, constantly mixing foreign wine. The moment Tan Xiu opened the door, more than a dozen pairs of eyes in the room suddenly looked at him. It's quite lively here. Tang Xiu entered the room with Andy and looked at Long Zhenyu, who got up and said with a smile. Long Zhenyu smiled and waved at the singing girl, hinting her to stop first. After the room quieted down, he smilingly said, "My friends from Blue City came over today, so I invited them to drink some wine and have some fun. It's just that I didn't expect that the handsome Tang bro would come with such a beauty. This little angel is really beautiful. No wonder she can enter your eyes. A filthy mouth can't spit out ivory." Tan Xiu snappily scolded with a smile. Long Zhenyu laughed and turned to the lazy young man, saying, "Fei Shan, he's Tan Xiu, the one I told you about." "Tan Xiu, this is Fei Shan, the second son of the Fei family in Blue City. He's very wild and arrogant, but he's also very lazy. He's a man of temperament and is worth making friends with." Tan Xiu didn't like Long Zhenyu's friend, but he still nodded to him out of consideration for Long Zhenyu's face. Fei Shan, on the other hand, didn't show an arrogant look and said with an easygoing smile, "Hello, Tan Xiu. I've been looking forward to meeting you for a long time. We came to Star City this time to meet with young Master Long, and also to see you, whose reputation resounds like thunder in our ears." "What's the matter?" asked Tan Xiu. Fei Shan was stunned by Tan Xiu's question and secretly smiled wryly inside. "Can't I see you if I have nothing to do?" Upon seeing this, Long Zhenyu hurriedly said with a smile, "It's nothing. I've heard a lot about you, so I wanted to come and get to know you. Tan Xiu, you can contact him if there's anything you need in Blue City in the future. This brat is a local tyrant in Blue City, and he can handle many things." "Connections?" Tan Xiu seemed to understand Long Zhenyu's meaning as he nodded to Fei Shan and said, "I have something to discuss with Long Zhenyu today. Let's find some time to sit alone later." "Deal," Fei Shan said with a smile. At this moment, the door was pushed open again as Huang Su walked in with a dejected and embarrassed expression. When he saw Tan Xiu and Andy inside the room, he suddenly stared blankly for a moment before an angry expression appeared on his face. He glared at Tan Xiu and shouted, "Brat, you left fast just now. I didn't expect you to appear here. Don't think I can't clean you up in Star City." Tan Xiu looked at Huang Su with an inexplicable expression before he turned to Long Zhenyu and asked, "Do you know him?" Long Zhenyu quickly said, "Tan Xiu, is there any misunderstanding between you? He's another friend of mine, Huang Su, the young master of the Huang family in Blue City." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "Long Zhenyu, I originally thought that the saying, 'birds of a feather flock together,' was very reasonable, but it seems that I was wrong today. This guy is not a good thing, yet you're actually mingling with him. Forget it, you can play with yourself. I'm leaving first." Long Zhenyu forced a smile and stopped Tan Xiu. He then fiercely glared at Huang Su and angrily shouted, "What's the matter with you, brat? You asked me to take you to see Tan Xiu, yet you have eyes but failed to recognize MBTI? I know Tan Xiu's character. He never takes the initiative to provoke trouble. Did you do something out of line? Did you make Brother Tang unhappy?" "He's Tan Xiu?" Huang Su's eyes turned wide as he asked in astonishment. Of course he's Tan Xiao. Long Zhengyu angrily said, Didn't I tell you before? Brother Tang will come here tonight. An awkward expression appeared on Huang Su's face. He recalled all the things that happened between him and Tan Xiao before. He forced a smile and spread out his hands, saying, I was rude before, Brother Tang. I didn't expect that you're Tan Xiao. I heard a lot of stories about you from Long Zhengyu, and I admire you very much. This can be considered as a flood rushing against the Dragon King's temple. You're a family that doesn't recognize each other, no? Tan Xiao sighed inwardly. He didn't like Huang Su's character that easily attracted disaster. After all, such a person like him would have been slaughtered hundreds of times if he was in the immortal world. However, since Huang Su was Long Zhengyu's friend and he still had something to ask from him, he didn't feel like getting to the bottom of it. Forget it. Just treat it as if nothing happened before. Pay attention later. It's best to inquire about the other party's details before provoking him, else you'll easily suffer a loss. Being lectured by Tan Xiao, Huang Su was a bit annoyed, but he still nodded. Long Zhengyu smiled and pulled Tan Xiao to sit on the sofa. At the same time, he drove the women out and asked, Brother Tang, you said you wanted to find me for something. What's the matter? Tan Xiao said, Get something to eat first and tell Andy to eat. Long Zhengyu pressed the bell at the side and a waiter quickly arrived. After Long Zhengyu told him about Tan Xiao's request and ordered a lot of the Long's dining hall's specialties, he looked at Tan Xiao and said, Can you tell me now? What's the matter? I've invited several steward trainers from abroad, Tan Xiao said. They'll arrive in Star City tomorrow. I'm going to arrange them in Southgate Town. That place is, after all, your turf. I want you to help me contact them and see if there's anyone willing to rent a villa. I need to rent it for a few months. Long Zhengyu looked at Tan Xiao with a strange expression and said, You brat, are you doing this on purpose? Do you know that I just bought a villa in Southgate Town? You bought it? Tan Xiao asked with a confused expression. In Southgate Town? Long Zhengyu forced a smile and said, I only have one for myself. Didn't I give it to you? It just so happens that I have a friend who is preparing to emigrate abroad. He bought a villa in Southgate Town and wants to sell it. I'm going to spend some money to renovate it. Ha! Tan Xiao laughed happily. Looking at Long Zhengyu's depressed expression, he said with a smile, Rent the villa to me for a few months. I'll return it to you after those steward trainers from abroad leave. Long Zhengyu shook his head and sighed, You're simply my nemesis. Anyway, I haven't renovated it yet. You'll have to wait if you want to move in. You can use it if you want. I'll ask my cousin to send the key to your house. Your cousin? Tan Xiao was a bit confused. Chapter 165. Looking at Tan Xiao's confused expression, Long Zhengyu's mouth curved into an arc as he said with a smile, Long Shuiyao is my cousin. Don't tell me you don't know? Tan Xiao was surprised. She's your cousin? I really didn't know. However, I've neglected that there are not many people surnamed Long. You're surnamed Long, and so is she. Besides, she's also the property manager of Southgate Town, so it's normal for her to be your relative. Long Zhengyu said with a smile, Then, this matter has been decided in an unpleasant manner. So that I won't be depressed anymore, you have to accompany us to drink a few cups tonight. Tan Xiao looked at Andy as he nodded and said, All right, I'll stay and accompany you to drink a few cups. This is Andy, Kong Xia's right-hand woman. She's going to accompany Kong Xia to participate in the charity auction, so she's very hungry now. Let her eat something to fill her stomach when the food is served. Long Zhengyu was surprised. Andy? The famous witch Andy? Andy smiled tenderly. Are you praising me, Mr. Long? Or are you scolding me? Though I'm not particularly proficient in Mandarin, I can sense that something is amiss. Ugh. Long Zhengyu's expression stagnated as he secretly rolled his eyes inside. Not particularly proficient in Mandarin? A foreign girl who's not particularly proficient in Mandarin can understand the meaning behind my words? Shaking his head, Long Zhengyu forced a smile and said, I misspoke. Those who said that you're a witch are blind. You're so cute, just like a fairy who fell to the mortal world. You're not a witch at all. If I ever hear someone say that you're a witch, I'll definitely beat him into a pig's head. Hee hee. Andy's laughter was like a flowery branch trembling as the two big lethal weapons on her chest surged. All the men present, including Tan Xiu, couldn't help but secretly swallow their saliva. Tempting. It's really tempting. The four young and vigorous men muttered inwardly, "You're not a witch, nor an angel. You're just a little seductress who can bring calamity to the country and people." Cough, cough. Tan Xiu concealed the awkwardness in his heart and changed the topic. "Long Zhengyu, your brother hasn't come to harass me recently. Where did he go?" Long Zhengyu shook his head and smilingly said, "He went to Blue City. I didn't know what that kid was thinking. He told my father that he wanted to start a career. He wanted to go to Blue City first and make a name for himself. Then he would go to Shanghai to develop himself. As a matter of fact, he asked my dad for 5 million yuan. After he went to Blue City, there has been no news of him for more than 10 days. Did he really leave Star City?" Tan Xiu was surprised. Long Zhengyu asked curiously, "You seem to know something?" Tan Xiu smiled and said, "It's me who told him to go out and explore the world. I feel that he won't have much prospects in the future if he's always under the protection of you and your parents. He was smart and knew how to do business, but he had no ambition. I provoked him, but I didn't expect that he would really go out to explore the outside world." "That's right." Fei Shan and Huang Su glanced at each other. They both knew Long Zhenglin and also knew that he had a haughty and arrogant personality. But they didn't expect that he would listen to Tang Xiu's words and attach so much importance to Tang Xiu's opinion. In a flash, their impression of Tan Xiu deepened a bit. "Young Master Long, your second brother went to Blue City and didn't even contact me. You're really not a good brother. I'll look for him after we go back. I'll help him open the green light no matter what business he wants to do." Fei Shan also said with a smile, "I may not be able to help him if it's in other places. But in Blue City, it's quite useful for us to say a few words. Your second brother is not a good person, so it's inevitable that he'll run into some local bullies in Blue City." "What's that saying again?" "Wicked people need to be tempered by wicked people. We're in Blue City to watch him, so you can rest assured." Long Zhengyu grabbed the mixed wine on the table and stuffed a cup into Tan Xiu's hand. Then he raised it and said, "To express my gratitude, I propose a toast to you." A cup of wine entered his stomach. Tan Xiu smacked his lips as he shook his head and said, "I've heard of this wine, but I've never tasted it. It's really disgusting. I think the strong liquor brewed in our country is more flavorful." Fei Shan's eyes lit up. He immediately walked to the cabinet at the side and grabbed a bottle of unpackaged wine. After returning to his seat, he handed it to Tan Xiu and said, "Brother Tang is a man, so you know that men like us drink strong liquor. How about you try this bottle of wine I brought from Blue City?" Tan Xiu took the bottle of wine and looked at the words, "Serving the people," on the bottle as well as the yellowed wine inside. He was surprised and said, "Is this the legendary special wine?" Fei Shan raised his thumb and praised, "You have a good eye, Brother Tang. This is indeed a special wine provided by the military. My brother is the chief of staff of a military region in the northeast. He brought this wine back for my grandfather. I snuck it out. I heard from him that this wine is nearly 30 years old and was stored in a mine's cellar in the northeast. I just got it half a year ago." Tang Xiu let out a faint smile. Let alone wine that had been stored in the cellar for nearly 30 years, he had even drunk wine that had been stored for thousands of years. However, it was still a fine wine stored on earth for 30 years. He opened the bottle cap and poured 4 cups. He picked up a cup and drank it. Suddenly, he felt a strong and mellow taste lingering on his tongue. It was as if a ball of fire had flowed down his throat and finally exploded in his chest. The intense heat quickly flowed into his abdomen and eventually spread to his limbs and bones with his abdomen as the center. "Nice." Tan Xiu couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. He felt that this cup of wine tasted better than the fine wine in the everlasting feast hall. Suddenly, he had an impulse to brew a batch of wine himself. After all, there were many people in the world who loved wine. If he could find someone who could really taste good wine and let them taste the wine he brewed, it would definitely be a happy thing. Tan Xiu knew how to brew wine, and the wine he brewed was absolutely the best. Fei Shan's eyes were particularly bright at this moment. It was as though he had met a confidant. He felt a bit closer to Tan Xiao as he said with a smile, "It seems that stealing this bottle of wine is worth it, Brother Tang's praise. I didn't expect that Brother Tang is also a wine lover. It's a pity that this kind of wine is too rare, else we can drink to our heart's content in the future." Tan Xiao said with a smile, "Wait for a while if you want to drink good wine. If I go to Blue City to study at the university, I'll bring some good wine to your satisfaction." The thought flashed in his mind and he was about to do it. Tan Xiao was planning to brew some good wine. In any case, he could easily find the brewing materials and the cost of the wine was very low. Since he had nothing to do during the summer vacation, he could brew some. If he couldn't drink it, he could send it to his mother's restaurant. "Brother Tang, do you have any good wine there?" Fei Shan asked curiously. "I don't have any now, but I'm going to brew some," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "You know how to brew wine, Brother Tang?" Fei Shan was surprised. "I've brewed it before, and the taste is pretty good," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "Brother Tang, it seems that you're not only a wine lover, but also a wine addict." Fei Shan clapped his hands and said with a smile, "I'm looking forward to the wine you brew. When you go to Blue City, I'll hold a welcoming dinner for you at the best hotel there." Huang Su patted Fei Shan's shoulder and said with a smile, "How can it be your turn to hold a welcoming dinner for Brother Tang? I said something wrong today, but I haven't had a drink yet. Brother Tang is a magnanimous person and won't stoop to my level. But I, Huang Su, will keep this matter in mind. I'll be the host when Brother Tang arrives in Blue City. Of course, I can also taste the wine brewed by Brother Tang while I'm at it." Tan Xiao nodded with a smile. Though he didn't like Huang Su, but as the saying goes, one shouldn't slap a smiling face. Huang Su had repeatedly expressed his goodwill, so he didn't need to give him any face. Not to mention, he was well aware of the fact that connections were absolutely a divine weapon in the country. If he could make good use of it, it would be very convenient for him to do many things in the future. Andy had no interest in the wine, but she listened to their conversation with great interest. In particular, she found that Long Zhengyu and the other two were trying to befriend Tan Xiao. She felt sweet inside, thinking that her vision of men was right. In fact, she threatened to be Tan Xiao's lover tonight. Aside from 20% of her sincerity, the other 80% was just a joke. She might not have a big stature, but she had an exquisite mind. Those who knew her well were aware that she was the kind of person who would speak in a human's language and speak in a human's language. However, Andy could feel that she and Tan Xiao had become a lot closer after tonight's matter. She also realized that even if Tan Xiao was not a gentleman, he was not a fickle person either. She came to China with her parents at the age of 8 and lived for 6 years before returning to the United States. Especially after returning to the United States, she made a lot of Chinese friends, so she had a deep understanding of Chinese customs. If it weren't for her Western face, no one would have thought that she was a foreign girl. "Dear guests, the dishes you ordered are ready." A middle-aged man who looked like a manager entered the private room. Behind him were more than 10 waitresses who were carrying plates of food. Before he could even see the covered dishes, he could already smell the fragrance of rice. Long Zhengyu looked at Tan Xiao and said, "How about we eat some more?" Tan Xiao smiled and said, "Good wine and good food, we should eat more." Immediately, when they came to the restaurant and saw the dishes on the table, they suddenly felt hungry. Just as they were about to eat and drink, Andy's cell phone rang. "It's Chief Kong." Andy took out her cell phone and looked at the number displayed on the screen. Tan Xiao asked, "When will the charity auction start?" Andy said, 8:30. "There are still 20 minutes from now." Tan Xiao said, "In that case, let her come over and eat something first. Tell her not to work all day and rest when it's time to rest. Only by combining work and rest can we create more wealth." Andy smiled sweetly and said, "It's our happiness to have such a good boss like you." Today's 4 chapters have been updated. Quiet Night can finally lie down and rest. She will get up tomorrow and continue to work hard. These days, I've been asking for monthly votes like a lunatic. Even in my dreams, I ask my brothers and sisters to understand Quiet Night. If you have monthly votes, you must support Quiet Night. Thank you. Chapter 166. Inside the dining room, Huang Su couldn't help but curl his lips upon hearing Andy's words. He thought, "You'll be happier if you have such a good lover like him. I really don't know how this Tan Xiu did it. Not only does he have such a powerful ability, but he can also make a peerless beauty take the initiative to throw herself into his arms." Shortly after, Kang Xia, who learned that Andy and Tan Xiu were together, came to the A1608 suite. She and Long Zhengyu had met before. Although she didn't know Huang Su and Fei Shan, she still wore a smile and greeted everyone. Finally, she glanced at the smiling Andy and sat next to her. "Boss, I'm working myself to death in the company, but you're here? It's really unfair. How about you accompany me to the charity auction?" Kang Xia smilingly looked at Tan Xiu and said. Tan Xiu shook his head. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Long Zhengyu say, "It's the charity auction organized by Yang Weilon, isn't it? I originally wanted to participate, but I'm not going because of the arrival of these two friends. Since you want to go, then I'll also join in the fun. Fei Shan, Huang Su, both of you come too. Although our Star City isn't as good as Blue City, you may find something you're interested in at the charity auction." Fei Shan and Huang Su nodded with a smile. Tan Xiu looked at them and finally said with a forced smile, "If that's the case, then I'd like to experience it myself. To be honest, I've never participated in those upper-class charity galas." Fei Shan stood up and said with a smile, "In fact, this charity gala has two main purposes. The first one is the charity auction, which is actually a donation. The second one, most of the people who can attend this level of charity gala are celebrities in the business world, as well as the young masters and daughters of big families. There's no lack of young people among them. It's best if you can meet someone you like and marry them." Upon hearing this, Tan Xiu suddenly lost his interest. However, since he had already promised, it was not good for him to go back on his words. Fei Shan said with a smile, "You guys eat first. I'm going to change my clothes. Else, I'm afraid I'll be kicked out of the charity auction with this outfit." 10 minutes later, everyone ate some food. When Fei Shan regretted his decision, they rushed to the 18th floor, where the charity party was held. Since Kang Xia had an invitation card and Long Zhengyu was the young master of the Long family, many people knew him. The group didn't encounter any obstruction and entered the brightly lit banquet hall. The soft light from the crystal lamp shone on everyone. There were many people in the banquet hall. At least 100 people had arrived. Every one of them was well-dressed and elegant. Even if an ordinary person wanted to imitate that temperament, it would be very difficult to imitate it vividly. The arrival of this group of people attracted a lot of attention. Many people even came up to him with red wine in their hands. Although Long Zhengyu was the young master of Star City's Long family and was now famous in the business world, but compared to Kang Xia's popularity, it was much weaker. However, before Tan Xiu came, he asked Kang Xia and the others to keep his identity a secret, so Kang Xia didn't announce Tan Xiu's identity. Seizing this opportunity, Tan Xiu, Fei Shan, and Huang Su went to the sofa and sat down. It's almost the same as in the TV series. After sitting down, Tan Xiu gave such an evaluation. Fei Shan and Huang Su looked at each other. Both of them were at a loss whether they had to cry or laugh. At this moment, they believed that this was the first time Tan Xiu attended such an upscale charity banquet. "Brother Tang, there are a lot of socialites here tonight. Even the organizers have invited a lot of female stars. Look over there. That little star has at least participated in several TV series. Although she's not even a B-list star, it's obvious that someone wants to promote her." Huang Su was fond of women. His pair of shifty eyes always lingered on the women in the banquet hall. Tan Xiu looked at the direction of his finger, but he didn't recognize that little star. She had once participated in that TV series. Shaking his head, he said with a smile, "I'm still in school, so I don't have much interest in women. If you like them, you can hook up with some of them. But I advise you not to look for those with male companions. You'll be hated by others." A bit embarrassed, Huang Su forced a smile and said, "Brother Tang, I may like beautiful women, but I won't hook up with them whenever I see them. When we met tonight, It was mainly because your female companion was too beautiful. I may have countless women, but I don't even have one of that level. Tan Xiao shook his head with a smile. He had seen a lot of beautiful women. The female celestial maidservants in his immortal palace were as beautiful as Andy. There were even a few who were comparable to Andy. When he chose an immortal companion, he mainly looked at the other party's cultivation and character. But it was a pity. He didn't expect that the woman would eventually betray him. It was also for this reason that Tan Xiao didn't want to have too much involvement with women at the moment. If he had any physical needs, he could just find a woman who was willing to be with him. He didn't want to invest too much in relationships. Perhaps he would find a woman who was pleasing to his eyes to satisfy his mother's wish to be a grandmother in the future. 10 minutes later, just as Tan Xiao was a bit bored and wanted to leave early, Andy came to Tan Xiao with a plate of desserts and sat down next to him. Her big watery eyes looked at Tan Xiao and affectionately said, "Boss, have some desserts. This is the best one I've picked." Tan Xiao nodded. He picked up a piece and ate it, saying, "Why don't you accompany Kang Xia?" "What are you doing here?" "I often attend this kind of party, and I think it's boring," said Andy. "Those men are all perverts, always looking at me with lustful eyes. It's very annoying. I'm the boss's lover, how can I let them look at me?" Cough, cough. Fei Shan, who just drank 2 mouthfuls of red wine, directly choked upon hearing Andy's words. Face flushed, he looked at Andy and Tan Xiao incredulously. Huang Su secretly rolled his eyes inwardly. Recalling what happened between Andy and Tan Xiao before, there was a bit of worship in his eyes as he said, "Brother Tang, you're simply the reincarnation of the Casanova saint. If such a top-grade Lolita is willing to throw herself into my arms, I'd be willing to shorten my lifespan by 3 years. Andy's just joking, don't take it seriously, said Tan Xiao with a faint smile. Brother Tang, you don't know how blessed you are. Huang Su said with a depressed expression. I think you should take her to have sex with you. Don't provoke me here. Tan Xiao didn't utter a word and looked elsewhere. Fei Shan looked at Tan Xiao and Andy with a puzzled expression. His eyes then shifted to Huang Su and said with a confused expression, I'm confused by you. What the hell is going on? What else can it be? Huang Su forced a wry smile. That beautiful Andy is crying and shouting to be Brother Tang's lover, but Brother Tang refuses to accept it. I'm afraid Brother Tang is the only one in the whole world who would refuse such a good thing. Fei Shan looked at Tan Xiao with an inconceivable expression. Admiration and respect were revealed in his eyes as he praised, Brother Tang, you're able to keep your composure even when you're in love. You're truly a gentleman. Although I can't reach your level, but I admire you very much. Idol, let me kneel to you first. Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing. He suddenly found that being together with Huang Su and Fei Shan was actually quite interesting. After getting familiar with them, he could enjoy the relaxed and happy feeling they brought him. Can you give me face and have a drink, miss? An abrupt voice rang out beside them. A young man in white clothes with a cool hairstyle stood beside Andy with a confident smile. Andy just glanced at him and lightly said, I don't drink, thank you. Tan Xiao looked at the crystal glass in Andy's hand with a strange expression. Looking at the red wine inside, the corner of his mouth fiercely twitched twice. What do you mean by lying through your teeth? This is it. The way she refused people was really special. The young man didn't expect that Andy would use such an excuse to refuse him. An angry and ashamed expression immediately appeared on his face as he said, If I'm not mistaken, you're Kang Xia's follower, right? If it were Kang Xia, I would feel that you're climbing up the social ladder. But you're just a follower, yet you're so arrogant. Who gave you such confidence? Do you believe that I can make Chief Kang fire you from the magnificent Tang Corporation with just a word? Andy looked at the young man as though she was looking at an idiot. She deliberately moved closer to Tan Xiao and hummed, I don't believe it. Why don't you give it a try? The young man was furious. He quickly beckoned a waiter and whispered a few words to him. The waiter nodded and then walked toward Kang Xia. It didn't take long for Kang Xia to come in front of everyone with a surprised expression. What's going on? The young man quickly said, Chief Kang, do you still remember me? I'm the vice president of Messiah Cosmetics Company. You once came to our company for the sales of your upcoming cosmetics products. We also had a meal together. I remember. Your Chief Wu. Kong Xia nodded. Wu Changqing's eyes were filled with a pleasant surprise. It was as though being remembered by Kong Xia brought him a great honor. He glanced at Andy and said, Chief Kong, I've already agreed to your previous request. But can you do me a favor? What favor? Kong Xia raised her brows and asked. Wu Changqing pointed at Andy and proudly said, Can you fire her? I feel that keeping this kind of employee who doesn't know the big picture is a disaster. In case your company's product sales are affected because of her, the gains will outweigh the losses. Kong Xia's expression turned cold and lightly said, Are you threatening me? Chief Kong misunderstood me. I'm just asking for your help, said Wu Changqing quickly. Your favor is too big, I can't help you, Kong Xia said. As a matter of fact, it's useless even if I fire her. She also has shares in our magnificent Tang Corporation. Also, I want to tell you that our company has just made a decision. Our company's upcoming cosmetics products will no longer be sold through your sister's Messiah Cosmetics Company's channel. Please convey this to your general manager when you go back. There are only 4 chapters today. The first one is here. Seeking monthly votes. Chapter 167. Wu Changqing stared blankly for a moment before his complexion immediately changed. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that such a situation would occur. It must be noted that their Messiah company had almost finished negotiating with the magnificent Tang Corporation. Although the magnificent Tang Corporation took the initiative to look for them, their profits were still huge. If this business was ruined because of him, perhaps he would not be able to keep his position as the vice president. Thinking up to this point, thick cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He quickly said with an obsequious smile, It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. Actually, I'm just joking with this beautiful and lovely lady. Chief Kong, you're a magnanimous person, so please don't stoop to my level. I guarantee that our business will be very smooth. Also, I'll report to the general manager after I go back and fight for some preferential treatment for you. Tan Xiu looked up at Kong Xia and slowly asked, How big will the investment be if we set up our own exclusive stores in major cities in the country? Kong Xia stared blankly for a moment before she forced a smile and said, Very big. Furthermore, it's very difficult to set up exclusive stores all over the country in a short time. Tan Xiu said, Our cosmetics business must go to the high-end route. First, we'll open exclusive stores in the first-tier and second-tier cities in the country. After we recover the funds, we'll go to the next level. Remember, we must have the absolute say in our cosmetics sales. Kong Xia's complexion changed. She heavily nodded and said, Yes. I'll immediately revise the plan after I go back. We'll do it according to your request. However, regarding the initial funds, give me some time. I'll give you the funds needed for the initial investment in a month at most, said Tan Xiu. Kong Xia was pleasantly surprised and said, If we have enough funds, I can greatly shorten the time for our products to hit the market. Tan Xiu said, Remember, we're not going to do luxury jewelry, but we must go to the high-end route. As long as our cosmetics are good enough, we don't need to worry about not being able to sell them. Understood. Kong Xia nodded with a smile. Wu Changqing was at a loss due to the relationship between Tan Xiu and Kong Xia. His mind was in a mess. He found that the famous general manager of the magnificent Tang Corporation, Kong Xia, was actually taking orders from someone else. Even more so, Kong Xia was like an employee who was listening to the instructions of the boss. Who was he? How could he order Kong Xia? Could it be? A shocking guess appeared in Wu Changqing's mind, but he instantly expelled it. He didn't believe that Kong Xia would work for a young man in his 20s. He couldn't accept that the magnificent Tang Corporation's big boss, who had recently invested a lot in this company, was a young man. You are, in the end, Wu Changqing still asked the question in his heart. Andy looked like an angel, but her mouth was extremely sharp. She rolled her eyes at Wu Changqing and said angrily, I say, you are so stupid. Fortunately, our magnificent Tang Corp didn't do business with your company, else we would have been implicated by a group of brainless people like you. President Kong has already made it so obvious, but you still foolishly asked. If I were you, I'd just find a piece of tofu and kill myself, so that I don't live in this world and embarrass myself. Powerful. Huang Su secretly gave a thumbs up, his face full of schadenfreude. When he was humiliated by Andy, his heart could be described as broken, and he was so angry that he almost went crazy. But when he heard Andy humiliate others, he felt especially comfortable in his heart. The matter of him being humiliated before was also thrown out of his mind. Speaking of which, although Huang Su was lecherous, his character was also somewhat heartless. Wu Changqing's face was as pale as paper. He looked incredulously at Tan Xiu and then at Kong Xia, trying to salvage the situation. He squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying and said, "Chief Kong, this? Brother, I was wrong just now. Please don't lower yourself to my level. I promise there won't be a next time. Our company needs this business, so we can discuss everything." Get lost. Tan Xiu hated Wu Changqing's arrogant and domineering attitude, and he was too lazy to listen to his explanation. Kong Xia said, "Vice President Wu, I've made it clear. No matter how hard you try to redeem it, it won't work. Just leave. Don't make your company lose face here." Wu Changqing's lips squirmed a few times. Seeing that the matter couldn't be salvaged, he immediately turned hostile and glared at Kong Xia and Tan Xiu, saying, "You're good. You have guts. Just wait for me. I hope you won't regret it when the time comes." Huang Su crossed his legs, raised his palm and shouted, "Do you believe that this father won't slap you if you keep talking? Brother Tang already told you to get lost, so don't make any more noise here." Wu Changqing shrunk his neck and left with a crestfallen expression. Tan Xiu slowly got up and said, "Kong Xia, I'll leave this to you. I'm not used to this atmosphere, so I'll go back first. Andy drank some wine tonight, so you can send her back." Kong Xia, who had just received Tan Xiu's financial guarantee, said with a smile, "Do you want me to send you back, boss? In any case, I've already done my business and the auction is just a formal donation. We're too poor now, so I won't pretend to be generous. It doesn't matter if I stay or not." Tan Xiu hesitated and said, "Is it okay for you to go now?" "It's okay." Kong Xia nodded heavily. Tan Xiu said, "Since it's okay, then send me back. In this case, you can go back earlier and rest earlier." After a short while, Tan Xiu greeted Long Zhengyu, Huang Su, and Fei Shan, and then left with Kong Xia and Andy. At the entrance of the party hall, Huang Su looked at their backs as they left. With a sour tone, he said, "Tan Xiu is really lucky with women. Kong Xia is a stunning beauty. Even the first beauty in the imperial capital can only be compared to her. Andy is an angelic Lolita with a child's face, a rare and exquisite woman. On the surface, it looks like Kong Xia wants to send Tan Xiu back, but I think they must be rolling in the sheets." Long Zhengyu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he said, "Young Master Huang, how come the words coming out of your mouth have a different taste? Tan Xiu is not the kind of person who falls in love with every woman he sees. He's not like what you said, playing some dirty tricks." Fei Shan shook his head and said, "Young Master Long, I don't like what you said. Haven't you heard that even heroes have a weakness for the charms of beauties? Kong Xia and Andy are the best among women. Only one of them can be picked out from thousands of women. Even if Tan Xiu has a good willpower, can he resist their temptation? You two are really dirty." Long Zhengyu scolded with a smile. However, he admired Tan Xiu in his heart. He was a smart man, and his observation skill was even more formidable. He could see that Kong Xia and Andy had a deep impression of Tan Xiu. Once this good impression fermented to a certain extent, it would probably change qualitatively and turn into an undying love. The next afternoon, Kong Xia sent the company's business car to pick up the 4 housekeeper trainers from the UK from the airport. They were also sent to the villa in Southgate Town. These 4 housekeeper trainers had their own unique skills and were very famous in the British aristocratic circle. Tan Xiu had spent a lot of money this time, so after seeing the 4 people, he handed Mu Qingping over to them. As for how much Mu Qingping could learn, that was her business. In the evening, Tan Xiu took the high-speed rail and rushed to Dongyuan province. There was no direct flight from Star City to Songbei City in Dongyuan Province. But the railway line was very developed, so it only took 3 hours for Tan Xiu to arrive at Songbei City at 10 o'clock in the evening. After leaving the train station, Tan Xiu intended to stop a taxi outside the station. But to his helplessness, he found that there were indeed a lot of taxis here. But when he reported the name of Qingshan Town, all the taxi drivers refused to pick him up without exception. Why not? Tan Xiu couldn't help but ask the female driver. The female driver forced a smile and said, "Little brother, it's not that we don't want to go. After all, the distance from the train station to Qingshan Town is very far. But it's already late at night, and the road is very remote and dangerous. Even if the guest is a good person, in case they meet a road bully. That would be miserable." Road bully? Tan Xiu couldn't understand and curiously asked, "From here to Qingshan Town, will we meet a road bully? Isn't this a society ruled by law? Is there no police to manage it?" The female driver sighed. "Manage? How come there's no police? But those road bullies are like rats. They are very familiar with the geographical environment along the road. Plus, it's a remote area along the road, so it's very difficult to meet people within dozens of miles. Even if the police want to arrest those road bullies and robbers, it's very difficult to catch them. Every time those guys see that the situation is not right, they will drill into the mountain forest on the roadside. It's very difficult to catch them even if a lot of police forces are deployed." Suddenly, the female driver lowered her voice and looked around. After finding that no one was paying attention to her and Tan Xiu, she then whispered, "Little brother, I advise you to stay in Songbei City tonight and rush to Qingshan Town tomorrow. Those road bullies and robbers are very rampant. I heard that they have some dirty relations with some police in the city. So, it's better to be safe than sorry. You'll be out of luck if you run into those scourges." Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment before he forced a smile and said, "If that's the case, then send me to a hotel in Songbei City. I want a good hotel." Seeing that Tan Xiu listened to her advice, the female driver immediately smiled and said, "All right, little brother, get in the car. I'll send you to the most high-end 5-star hotel in Songbei City. All right? If you go to Qingshan Town tomorrow morning, do you need me to pick you up? I'll directly send you there." "There's such a service?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "Isn't it like booking a big job in advance?" The female driver said with a smile. "We taxi drivers in Songbei City can't be compared with those unlicensed taxi drivers in terms of income. If you want to keep your job, then you must know some strategy." "All right then, pick me up tomorrow morning," Tan Xiu said with a smile. Chapter 168. Songbei City's economic development was average. Although it should be on the same level as Star City, but the development and construction of the entire urban area was far behind Star City. Even though the female driver threatened to send Tan Xiu to a 5-star hotel, after entering the hotel, Tan Xiu felt that this hotel might not even reach the standard of a 4-star hotel. Of course, the price was also much cheaper. Songbei City was surrounded by mountains on 2 sides and water on the other side. Geographically, it was slightly remote in the country. The next morning, Tan Xiu washed up and ate breakfast in the hotel restaurant. Then he got into the taxi of the driver who came to pick him up. "How long will it take us to get from here to Qingshan Town?" Tan Xiu asked. The female driver said with a smile, "It's nearly 2.5 hours. Although the journey isn't too far, the road isn't very good. The government has been clamoring for roads to be built all day long, but there has been no movement for several years. If it's a good road, it'll only take about an hour to cover a distance of 100 or 200 kilometers." Tan Xiu nodded slightly. He pondered for a moment and suddenly asked, "I heard that there is a sinkhole here? Is it true?" The female driver was stunned for a moment. Then she seemed to come to a realization. She looked at Tan Xiu from the side and smilingly said, "Little brother, you're going to Qingshan Town to go to the giant sinkhole, right? Listen to Big Sister's advice. Don't put yourself in danger." The sky cavern was located in the deep mountains and forests. The mountain path was steep, and there were poisonous snakes and ferocious beasts, miasma and swamps. Many people who stepped into the mountains never came out again. Every year, Many white bones are discovered by later generations. Tan Xiu asked curiously, the Pulin mountain range is considered a large mountain range in the country. Could it be that the government here has not thought of developing it into a tourist attraction? Now, everywhere in the country, places with a little bit of scenery were wantonly building tourist attractions, hoping to attract a large number of domestic and foreign tourists and improve the economic development of the city. Songbei City has this foundation, why not make use of it? The female driver bitterly smiled. Songbei City's government can only be described with 3 words. Tan Xiu asked, which 3 words? An action. The female driver said bluntly. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing. Although the female driver said it simply, she expressed the meaning vividly. He had once heard Yuan Chuling lamenting about this. To this day, those words were still fresh in his memory. As an official, I'm not afraid of him being greedy. All the crows in the world were black. If one was promoted within the system, it would be difficult for them to succeed if they were not greedy. However, some officials were greedy, but they did things for their bosses. Some officials were greedy, but they didn't do things for their bosses. Of the 2 types of officials, the latter are the most hateful. Tan Xiu didn't want to talk about the government, so he smiled and shook his head, looking out the window. The taxi drove very fast. In just over half an hour, it left Songbei City and entered the rural road. It didn't take long before they reached the end of the relatively spacious road. In front of them was a bumpy gravel road. Sigh, every time I walk this path, I get a headache. Apparently, the female driver didn't like being lonely. She spoke again not long after the conversation ended. Tan Xiu didn't want to talk anymore. He looked at the female driver in the back seat and said, I want to sleep for a while. Wake me up when we arrive at Qingshan town. Sleep? You didn't rest well last night? The female driver was surprised. Tan Xiu admitted it perfunctorily. The female driver smiled and said, that's right. It was already past 10 o'clock when you arrived at Songbei City last night. Then you went to the hotel, washed up, and went to bed at least at 12 o'clock. You got up so early in the morning. It would be strange if you didn't feel sleepy. Go to sleep, buddy. I'll wake you up when we arrive. Thank you. Tan Xiu answered and slowly closed his eyes. He did sleep very late last night. It was not 12 o'clock at night, but 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. After all, no matter how busy he was, he had to find time to practice every day. Although the astral power in his body wasn't increasing fast, it was slowly accumulating. When the time came, he would reach the peak of the skin-strengthening state. Time flew by. Just when Tan Xiu was in a deep sleep, he was awakened by the sudden braking of the taxi. What's going on? Tan Xiu's body was moving forward due to inertia. If it weren't for his quick reflexes, his head would have hit the back of the seat in front of him. After opening his eyes, he frowned and asked. The female driver's face was pale and her eyes revealed a bit of nervousness. She turned her head and said bitterly, we're screwed. I didn't expect to be robbed in broad daylight. Tan Xiu looked out of the window and immediately found that the taxi was surrounded by 3 vans after it stopped. 7 or 8 meters in front of the taxi, there were 4 or 5 stones blocking the road. Tan Xiu looked around and realized that this was a 3-way junction. The 3 vans should have been waiting at the crossroads on both sides for a long time, waiting for passing cars. When a car came, they would immediately drive out and outflank the car. And those 4 or 5 stones were probably thrown on the road at the last minute. However, he didn't expect that the people here would be so audacious. They dared to block the road and rob people in broad daylight. It could be imagined how arrogant these people were. The local government is really incompetent. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly, but he didn't feel nervous. Looking at the dozen-strong men armed with knives and weapons rushing out of the 3 vans, he calmly said, you wait in the car. I'll go down and have a look. The female driver quickly said, little brother, you must not bump into them. These people are generally after money. As long as we give them all the money, our personal safety can be guaranteed. But if you offend them, they will be ruthless. Tan Xiu didn't speak. He opened the door and got off the car. He looked at the fierce faces of the dozen-strong men and lightly said, are you the ones who block the road and rob people? The leader of the dozen strong men was a man with a shaved head and a thick gold chain around his neck. There was a hideous scar on his left cheek that looked like a centipede. Holding a machete, he grinned and said, "You're quite knowledgeable, huh, brat? You know that we're blocking the road and robbing you, so you obediently take out all your belongings. Maybe we brothers will be happy and won't break your hands and feet." Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and slowly said, "Have you ever heard of the saying that a wicked man will be tormented by another wicked man?" The bald man stared blankly for a moment and then burst into laughter. "You mean, you're also a wicked man? Do you want to teach us a lesson?" Tan Xiu gave him a thumbs up and praised, "You have a good comprehension ability. You must be a smart man. It's a pity that you don't walk the right path and your mind is full of crooked ideas. Today, I'll help your parents teach you a lesson so that you can repent and turn over a new leaf in the future." "Ha!" The bald man laughed crazily, and the dozen strong men around him also convulsed with laughter. They looked at Tan Xiu as though they were looking at an idiot. After a while, the bald man stopped laughing and looked at Tan Xiu. He crooked his finger and smilingly said, "Brat, do you know my name? Scarblade Chong. My brothers call me Big Brother Chong. How about it? Have you heard the name of your big brother?" Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "You're just a country bumpkin. I've never heard of you. Are you very famous?" A big man grinned and said, "Famous? More than famous? Big Brother Chong is definitely famous. You're quite tactful, brat. You know that you're a country bumpkin with no experience." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "I want to refute you. Besides, I think he's really not famous. Do you know why?" Asked the big man with a puzzled expression. "It's said that the bird that pokes its head out will be shot." Tan Xiu lightly said, "If he's really famous, I'm afraid he would have been arrested by the police. Although the law and order here is not good, it's hard for the police to tolerate people who are too rampant. You're courting death." The big man flew into a rage and pointed the tip of the knife in his hand at Tan Xiu. Scarblade Chong waved his hand to stop the big man beside him. He squinted his eyes and sized up Tan Xiu as he lightly said, "Kid, I admire your courage. You can speak so confidently and with assurance in front of us. Presumably, you're not an ordinary person. Which gang are you from? Give us brothers your name." "I told you, I'm from the countryside," said Tan Xiu. Scarblade Chong shot a deep look at Tan Xiu. A bit of a grin was revealed on his face as he said, "I gave you the opportunity, but you didn't grasp it. Since that's the case, us brothers won't be polite. Take out all your belongings and the driver in the taxi. Get the fuck out here and hand over all your money. Else, you'll have a bloody disaster today." Tan Xiu indifferently said, "I'll return those words to you. Take out all your money, else don't blame me for being impolite. Also, take out the dog chain on your neck and the watch on your wrist. Hand over all your valuables and valuables." Scarblade Chong stared blankly, and the dozen big men around him were also dumbfounded. However, in just a few seconds, they reacted. Each and every one of them looked angry as they aggressively pounced toward Tan Xiu. A cold and callous expression appeared on Tan Xiu's face as he looked at the incoming knife. His footsteps flashed as he dodged it, and his fist heavily hit the bridge of the nose. He didn't use much strength, but this punch was enough to break the other's nose. Bam, bam. Tan Xiu was like a fierce tiger, while the dozen big men were like soft lambs. The result of a tiger entering a flock of sheep was naturally obvious. In just 7 or 8 breaths, more than 10 big men were knocked down by Tan Xiu. Each and every one of them curled up on the ground like shrimps, howling in pain. Scarblade Chong didn't move, and he was the only one standing intact. His pupils shrunk as disbelief flashed in his eyes. He stared fixedly at Tan Xiu as if he was looking at a terrifying monster. He had seen martial arts experts before, but he had never seen anyone with such terrifying skills. At this moment, he suspected that if he wasn't dreaming, then was this Tan Xiu in front of him a retired Special Forces soldier. Chapter 169. Scarblade Chong subconsciously took 2 steps back as he looked at Tan Xiu with vigilance. His hand gripping the hilt of his knife increased a lot. He knew the fighting level of his brothers. They were not easy to deal with. They often fought and had rich combat experience. However, they were all knocked down by the young man in front of him in just 7 or 8 breaths. He knew that he had kicked a hard stubble this time. If his trump card worked, then he could still clean up this young man. But if it didn't work, then he was afraid that he would really be out of luck this time. After a moment of silence, Scarblade Chong took out a pistol from his waist. After opening the safety, he pointed the black muzzle at Tan Xiu and shouted in a stern voice, "Brat, do you really think that you can clean up all of us with your martial arts? Even if you can fight, can you be faster than my bullets?" Tan Xiu's expression was still calm as he lightly said, "I'll give you 3 seconds to put down the muzzle. I hate it the most when people threaten me, and I also hate it when people point their guns at me. Those who have pointed their guns at me are either dead or seriously injured." What? Scarblade Chong's heart trembled as he subconsciously lowered the muzzle. It was not a day or two since he had been mingling in this underworld, and he had encountered a lot of ruthless people. But when facing Tan Xiu, he felt a kind of creepy feeling in his heart. Even if he had a gun in his hand, he still believed Tan Xiu's words in an instant. He felt that a person with such a terrifying force would never exaggerate. "You? Who the hell are you?" Tan Xiu lightly said, "You don't need to know who I am. You only need to know that today, I'm going to teach you a lesson on behalf of your parents, so that you can walk on the right path of turning over a new leaf." Scarblade Chong was silent for a moment. Then, he lifted the muzzle and pointed it at Tan Xiu again as he said in a deep voice, "Brat, I'm not scared. I really don't believe that your speed can be faster than my shooting speed. I don't believe that your body of flesh and blood can dodge my bullets. I'll say it here. If you can beat me, I'll let you teach me whatever you want, and I guarantee that I'll never break the law again. Don't blame me if you lose and end up with more injuries." Tan Xiu crooked his finger at Scarblade Chong and coldly snorted, "Try shooting." "No." The female driver, who had been hiding in the taxi, watched the whole scene of Tan Xiu knocking down more than a dozen big men. Never in her wildest dreams did she expect that Tan Xiu, who had always been amiable and easy to talk to, actually possessed such terrifying skills. She thought that she would be safe this time, but she didn't expect that Scarblade Chong would actually bring a pistol. She clearly heard the conversation between Tan Xiu and Scarblade Chong, and fear rose in her heart. She was also annoyed that Tan Xiu was too arrogant. Even when he was pointed at by a gun, he still didn't know what was good for him. As the saying goes, endure for a moment and calm the waves, take a step back and you'll see the world. At most, he would lose some money today. It was better than losing his life. She opened the door and rushed to Tan Xiu's side. She looked at Scarblade Chong and nervously said, "Big brother, my family's little brother is insensible. Please don't lower yourself to his level. I'll give you the money. I'll give you all the money I have. I hope you won't trouble us again." Scarblade Chong narrowed his eyes and coldly snorted, "Your family's little brother? Aren't you just a taxi driver? Isn't he just a passenger? What? You want to stand up for him?" The female driver forced a smile and said, "I don't want to stand up for him. I just don't want to make this matter bigger. It's not easy for us to make a living. As long as we can get money, it's better to have less trouble. Besides, if you kill him, won't you be burdened with a murder case? It's said that if one often stands by the river, one's shoes won't get wet. If one day this matter is exposed, you'll have to pay with your life." She paused and looked at the indifferent expression on Tan Xiu's face. She forcefully pulled Tan Xiu's sleeve and squeezed out a smiling face as she spoke again. "Big brother, what you just said is correct. He's indeed just my passenger. But I believe you've seen his skill. How can an average person achieve such a terrifying kung fu? You can shoot him now and you can also kill him. But have you ever thought about it? He's so powerful, but what about his family? What background does he have? What's his purpose in coming here?" Scarblade Chong was stunned. Tan Xiu's terrifying skill had indeed shocked him. But he didn't think too much about it. But now, after the driver's reminder, he suddenly sobered up. That's right. This young man looked to be in his 20s. Such a young man with such a powerful kung fu, there must be someone more powerful behind him. In case he really provoked a big shot that he couldn't afford to offend, he was afraid that he would die without a burial site. Perhaps he would even implicate his family. Thinking up to this point, Scarblade Chang slowly put down the pistol. He deeply looked at Tan Xiu and said, "All right. I admit that I don't want to cause any trouble. I can also see that little brother is not an ordinary person. Let's settle today's matter like this. Give me a few thousand yuan as the medical expenses for my brothers, and we'll settle this matter. Later on, you go your own way and I'll go my own way. We'll mind our own business." Tan Xiu coldly shouted, "Raise your gun." Scarblade Chang frowned and instantly aimed the muzzle at Tan Xiu. An afterimage flashed as Scarblade Chang's right wrist was twisted and broken, and the pistol appeared in Tan Xiu's hand. Immediately after, Tan Xiu's foot flew up and fiercely kicked Scarblade Chang's face, directly slapping him to the ground. "You want me to settle this matter? I haven't agreed to it yet. You should be glad that you didn't shoot me. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as simple as having your hand crippled by me now. Maybe a few hours later, you bunch of scums will be fed to the wild beasts in this mountain." The female driver was dumbfounded as she looked at the scene in front of her. The situation had reversed 180 degrees, making her brain unable to process it for a moment. She just foolishly looked at Tan Xiu, looking at Scarblade Chang, who was slapped to the ground with blood overflowing from his mouth. At this moment, Scarblade Chang's heart was filled with a chill. His whole body was ice cold, and he even forgot the heart-wrenching and lung-splitting pain in his wrist. He couldn't even feel the burning pain on his face. Fast. It was really too fast. He only felt a blur in front of him. His wrist was twisted, and the pistol was in the other party's hand. He didn't even see how the other party kicked him, and he was directly slapped to the ground. At this moment, he suddenly realized that even if he had held the pistol and pulled the trigger, he wouldn't have been able to bring harm to this young man. On the contrary, his end would have been very miserable. Tan Xiu slowly squatted down. He patted Scarblade Chang's face and said, "Do you still remember what I just said? Unless you turn over a new leaf, I don't mind getting rid of the scourge for the people as soon as possible." Scarblade Chang's lips squirmed a few times. With an ashen face, he said, "We admit defeat. If you always stand by the riverside, how can you not get your shoes wet? This sentence makes sense. We won't rob people on this road anymore." "Pa." Tan Xiu slapped his face again as he coldly snorted and said, "It's not that we won't rob people on this road, it's just that we can't rob people anywhere. It's the cycle of the heavens, karma and retribution. The sins you committed in this life will be repaid in this life. Perhaps the retribution won't fall on your head, but you must accumulate virtue for your descendants. I promise you." Scarblade Chang's reply was very straightforward this time. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction. He got up and kicked him, saying, "Tell your brothers who can still crawl up to stop lying on the ground and pretending to be dead. Tell them to stand up and move the stones in front of the van. While you're at it, move the van." "All right." Scarblade Chang struggled to crawl up from the ground. He looked at his brothers who were curled up on the ground, not daring to get up, and shouted, "All of you, get up. Do as this little brother says." Those big men looked at Tan Xiu with fear in their eyes. After they crawled up, they moved the stones and the van. Tan Xiu stretched out his hand towards Scarblade Chang and lightly said, "Hand over all the cash you have. I came here in a hurry this time, so I didn't bring much cash with me. Since you've admitted defeat, consider it as filial piety to me. Take out the money." Scarblade Chang's heart was full of grievance as he shouted in a low voice. Quickly, a thick stack of 100 yuan bills, as well as a stack of change, was taken by Tan Xiu. With a glance, Tan Xiu found that these big men had a lot of cash on them. Altogether, it was more than 10 or 20,000 yuan. "Get lost. Don't let me see you again." Tan Xiu waved his hand and said. Scarblade Chang and his brothers couldn't wait to escape from here as soon as possible. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, they cursed inwardly, "Who wants to meet you, this fiend?" They left very fast. They came like the wind and left like the wind. When Tan Xiu looked at the female driver, he lightly said, "Can we go now?" The female driver seemed to wake up from a dream. Her body quivered and she quickly said, "Let's go. We'll leave immediately." Tan Xiu faintly smiled. After sitting in the car, he handed the 2 stacks of change to her and lightly said, "This money is my fare." The female driver quickly said, "No, no, no. This is too much. It's more than 1 or 2,000 yuan. If it weren't for you today, I would have been robbed by them. How can I take your money?" "Just take it," Tan Xiu said. "I didn't expect you to be so loyal. The other party had a gun, yet you dared to stand up for me. It can be said that a friend in need is a friend indeed." The female driver was also a straightforward person. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, she hesitated for a moment before she took the 2,000 yuan and gratefully said, "It's really rare to meet such a powerful and kind-hearted little brother like you these days. If you ever come to Zhongbei City again and need a taxi, just call this big sis. This big sis won't charge you." "Alright." Tan Xiu didn't act pretentiously and nodded with a smile. "Today, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired that my back hurts. I'm so sleepy that my eyelids are fighting with my lower eyelids. I'm begging for the monthly vote support." Chapter 170. Qingshan town was surrounded by mountains and rivers. The scenery was beautiful and the air was fresh. There weren't many residents here. The entire town was home to thousands of families. There weren't many shops in the town. But even though it was small, it had all the essentials. There were also shops selling oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, and tea. Furthermore, there was also a hotel in the busiest part of the block. After Tan Xiu got off the car at the entrance of the hotel, he saw a middle-aged man in a black training suit greeting him. "Are you Mr. Tang?" "I am," said Tan Xiu. The middle-aged man respectfully said, "Mr. Tang, our boss and Mr. Xiao have been waiting for you for a long time. Please come with me." Tan Xiu nodded and followed the middle-aged man into the hotel. In a spacious and bright room on the second floor, he saw Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjun. His eyes were sharp. The moment he saw them, he could see that they were injured. Although their injuries weren't very serious, they still looked a bit miserable. "Brother Tang, you finally arrived. It can be said that we've suffered a heavy loss this time. If you didn't want to come, we were ready to go home." Miao Wentong strode to greet him and spoke with a forced smile. Tan Xiu faintly smiled and said, "It's nothing. We're all cultivators. It just so happens that I also need a batch of precious ores recently. I'm very happy that you can think of me when you have a good thing." Xiao Mingjun helplessly said, "Brother Tang, we still don't know whether it's a good thing or not. Although we got the news that there are precious ores in that sky cavern, no one can say for sure whether it's true or not. We've gone there several times, but we haven't been able to go deep into the sky cavern." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "I'm well aware of this. However, both of you are cultivators with valiant strength. Even I'm not your match in a one-on-one fight. You should have held back on the phone, right?" "Indeed, we did hold back. I hope Brother Tang won't take it to heart. In the forest near the prime forest mountain range sky pit, we encountered a very powerful vicious creature. That thing looked like a tiger, but not a tiger, like a leopard, but not a leopard. Its body size was even smaller than a normal cheetah, but its speed was really too fast, and its intelligence was extremely high. We exhausted all of our efforts, and even at the cost of our own injuries, we only lightly injured it. In addition, there seems to be a natural maze formation at the place where we have to go to the giant sinkhole. We don't understand the maze formation, so we suffered a great loss from that ferocious creature. Of the dozen or so trusted subordinates I brought with me, no less than 5 of them died inside." Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and slowly said, "You've never seen that monster? Why haven't I seen any records of it in the records?" Both of them shook their heads. Tan Xiu said, "How about this? You are injured, I will give you a day to rest. Tomorrow morning, we'll set off for the prime forest mountain range." Miao Wentong rubbed his hands and grinned, "Our injuries are fine, Brother Tang. The last time we came back from the Evil Dragon Sea area, we bought a precious prescription from you. It only took us 2 days, and our injuries were completely healed. We came back the day before yesterday and picked up a lot of Chinese herbs according to your prescription. After we took it, our internal injuries are almost healed, and our external injuries will also be healed in 2 days." Picking herbs? Tan Xiu was surprised. Miao Wentong said, yes. It's picking herbs. This prime forest mountain range is almost undeveloped and still maintains its original appearance. There are a lot of precious medicinal herbs growing here. Many of our domestic medicinal herb merchants come here once in a while to buy some medicinal herbs from the local residents. Tan Xiu said with a smile, it seems like this place is really a treasure mountain. Let's find an opportunity to pick some precious medicinal herbs. I've already sent someone to prepare a suitcase. We'll take it when we enter the mountain, said Miao Wenong. The next day, the wounds on Miao Wenong and Xiao Mingjin's bodies had already scabbed and no longer affected their strength. The sky had just turned bright as the group of people left the small town on foot and entered the mountain forest. The lush foliage of the mountain forest was filled with hundreds of blooming flowers that were too beautiful to behold. The rugged mountain road was like a flat ground for everyone. This time, Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin didn't bring many people. Altogether, there were only 6 middle-aged men. Although they were not cultivators, their martial arts foundation was very profound. On the second evening after entering the mountain, everyone crossed over the mountains and finally arrived near the Sky Cavern. Along the way, they didn't encounter many crises. There were only a few sneak attacks from wild beasts, which were all killed by them. After all, Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin had walked this road several times and were quite familiar with it. Halfway up the mountain, Miao Wenong called his men to set up camp and prepared to spend the night here. Xiao Mingjin came to Tan Xiu's side. He looked at the undulating mountain range and sighed. This prime forest mountain range looks picturesque, but it's actually full of hidden dangers. If it were an ordinary person, I'm afraid it would be very difficult to come here. Tan Xiu nodded and said, this place is indeed full of dangers. According to what you said, we're already very close to the destination. Let you and Miao Wentong's men stay here. They are not cultivators. If they follow us, not only will they not be able to help us, they will also become a burden. Xiao Mingjin said, I also have the same idea. This time, we've lost too many men. We can't afford to continue losing them. Tan Xiu said, after dinner, all of you go rest. I'll keep watch. Xiao Mingjin quickly said, Brother Tang, I think it's better to let the others keep watch. The 3 of us have a good rest and restore our spirit. When we enter the maze array and the Sky Cavern tomorrow, we'll be able to perform better. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, I have a hunch that the baneful creature you mentioned will appear again tonight. If we don't deal with it, the days ahead will be very difficult. Xiao Mingjin said helplessly, that baneful creature's speed is too fast. We simply have no way to surround and kill it. Tan Xiu confidently said with a smile, leave it to me. As long as it dares to come again, I'll make it unable to leave. Xiao Mingjin was surprised and said, Brother Tang, do you have a way? Tan Xiu said, a ray. Xiao Mingjin's eyes lit up as he immediately clapped and applauded. That's right. If you can arrange an entrapment array and trap that baneful creature inside, it'll be much easier for us to kill it. So be it, Brother Tang. You take a rest and then start arranging the array. I'll inform Miao Wentong and the others to prepare to kill that baneful creature. Tan Xiu stopped him as he shook his head and said, no need. I alone am enough to deal with that baneful creature. You guys rest well tonight. If everyone helps, I'm afraid that the more we help, the more troublesome it will be. He stayed in Qingshan town for a day, but he didn't stay idle. Instead, he bought a lot of things. Not only did he buy good quality jades, but he also bought a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone to draw dozens of lightning talismans. He was worried that Xiao Mingjin and Miao Wentong's men would see him when he used the lightning talismans. Only then would he be able to avoid trouble. Apart from Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin, perhaps only Dao Master Z knew that he could refine lightning talismans. Therefore, he didn't want this matter to be known by others as little as possible. Xiao Mingjin hesitated and said, can you do it yourself? Do you want me to accompany you? For a moment, Tan Xiu was silent. Then he said, you stay here. I'll arrange the array in another place. Moreover, I'll think of a way to lead that baneful creature there. I'll tell Miao Wenong to go with me. You stay here to protect the others. Xiao Mingjin said, Alright. If you need my help, just think of a way to inform me. I'll immediately rush over there. Late at night, Tan Xiao and Miao Wenong were hiding in the dense thicket. In the middle of several trees, Tan Xiao ignited a raging fire and sprinkled a handful of snake aroma grass that he had picked on the way to the fire. This herb had a very good blood tonic effect, but its biggest function was to attract a lot of wild beasts. After Tan Xiao returned to Earth, he deliberately read the Herbal Compendium, Encyclopedia of Chinese Medicine, Yellow Emperor's Canon of Internal Medicine, Bien K's Pharmacology Compilation, and other books about Chinese medicine. Therefore, he had a deep understanding of the medicinal herbs on Earth. Early in the morning, Miao Wentong, who was hiding in the thicket, asked in a low voice, "Brother Tang, do you think that baneful creature will be attracted here?" Tan Xiao lowered his voice and said, "Since it took the initiative to sneak attack you several times, it proves that it's very aggressive. There's a fire here. If it's active in the nearby area, it should be able to attract its attention. In addition, within the radius of a kilometer, the snake aroma grass's fragrance is drifting. If it's a carnivore, it won't be able to help but come here. Don't be impatient. We'll know soon enough." Miao Wentong nodded silently. As a cultivator, he didn't lack patience. Since Tan Xiao was so confident, his confidence also increased a lot. Soon, 2 wild wolves appeared in the surroundings. These 2 wild wolves faced upwards and howled a few times. Half a minute later, pairs of green eyes appeared in the surrounding thicket. Dozens of wild wolves came over in fear. They seemed to be afraid of fire as they circled around the bonfire. Oh, suddenly, a wild wolf raised its head and howled. The other wild wolves also followed suit and howled towards the sky as they quickly rushed in the same direction. "What's going on?" asked Miao Wentong in a low voice. Tan Xiao squinted his eyes and quickly released his spiritual sense in all directions. When the range within 200 meters was completely covered, his expression slightly moved and he said in a low voice, "It's coming." Under the observation of his spiritual sense, he could see the baneful creature's appearance. It was indeed like what Miao Wentong and Tang Xiao had said. It looked like a tiger, but not a tiger, like a leopard, but not a leopard. The most important thing was that there were actually 1-inch-long protruding thorns on its back. It's bigger than a cat, but smaller than a leopard. It's agile and has a very high vigilance. Tan Xiao evaluated it inwardly through his observation. He was like an experienced hunter. With enough patience, he observed the baneful beast slowly approaching and quickly arrived at the edge of the array he had arranged. If it were to approach 10 meters closer, it would enter the array. At that time, it would be very difficult for it to escape. However, just when Tan Xiao thought that the baneful beast would enter the array, a sudden change occurred. Chapter 171. In the dense mountain forest, a strong Siberian tiger suddenly rushed out. Along with the tiger's roar, waves of sound spread in all directions. The baneful creature that was about to enter the range of the array suddenly turned around and ran into the distance at an extremely fast speed. In just 2 or 3 seconds, it disappeared from the range of Tan Xiao's spiritual sense. "Damn it!" Tan Xiao cursed in a low voice, but he still lurked in the bushes. "What happened?" asked Miao Wentong in a low voice. "I sensed that the baneful creature was approaching the array I arranged, but a Siberian tiger suddenly rushed out and scared it away," said Tan Xiao. "It's very timid, cautious, and highly intelligent." "What should we do then? Did we wait in vain today?" asked Miao Wentong. "If it were you, would you be willing to be scared away by something that suddenly appeared when you were about to face the temptation?" asked Tan Xiao. "I won't." Miao Wentong shook his head. "You won't, and I don't think it will either," said Tan Xiao. "Just wait. I'm sure it will sneak back to investigate the situation." Half an hour later, the Siberian tiger circled around the bonfire. From time to time, it would get closer to the bonfire, wanting to see what kind of delicious food was in the fire. "It's back." A satisfied smile appeared on Tan Xiao's face. His spiritual sense once again sensed the baneful creature's appearance. He found that the baneful creature was more cautious and its speed was much slower. It took several minutes for the baneful creature to appear in the bushes near the bonfire within a range of 200 meters. Its eyes flickered with blue light. Through the gaps in the bushes, it could clearly see the tiger in front of the bonfire and immediately shrunk its body. A few seconds later, it suddenly moved. It was like a hunter lurking in the dark, and the time seemed to be ripe at this moment. As it fiercely retreated, its vigorous body instantly pounced toward the Siberian tiger with a speed that was more than 10 times faster than Tang Xiu's full speed. In an instant, when it was only 3 or 4 meters away from the Siberian tiger, its furry feet suddenly thrust out 4 sharp claws and fiercely slashed the Siberian tiger's neck. Hiss! The Siberian tiger's fur was easily torn apart by the fierce creature's claws. Blood dyed the Siberian tiger's fur red in a very short period of time. The ferocious beast didn't stop moving. After its successful attack, it continued to brandish its sharp claws, tearing at the Siberian tiger's body. Roar! Bloody wounds appeared on the Manchurian tiger's body. The heart-wrenching pain made the Manchurian tiger roar. Although his movements were also very agile, compared to that ferocious creature, he was far too lacking. He fought back with all his might, but he couldn't even touch a single hair of that ferocious creature. It was time. Tan Xiu, who had been hiding in the bushes, sprang out in an instant. He slammed the jade stone in his hand into the eye of the array formation and injected his astral power into the jade stone. Instantly, the entire formation was activated. Miao Weneng also quickly sprang out of the bushes and stood next to Tan Xiu. He looked at the Siberian tiger and the ferocious creature that were fighting inside, but now were like headless flies. A pleasantly surprised expression appeared on his face as he quickly asked, "Brother Tang, has the array been activated? Have they been trapped inside?" "That's right." A smile was revealed on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. "They can't escape, so they'll fight each other again. The Siberian tiger is dead. Just look at its speed. Even if Brother Xiao and I join hands, we can only injure it lightly, but will be heavily injured. Brother Tang, don't look down on its small body. Its power is very terrifying. Even if Brother Xiao and I join hands, we won't be able to match it. It's so big." Tan Xiu was secretly startled. "It's really big." That ferocious creature was just deliberately playing with the Siberian tiger. It didn't use its full strength at all. You'll see it later. Once it goes all out, that Siberian tiger can only hold on for 10 seconds. It's already very powerful. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and then said, "Wait outside the array. I'll go inside to help that Siberian tiger. Only an injured ferocious creature is easier to deal with." After saying that, he stepped into the array and hid in the array's eye. He then grabbed dozens of lightning talismans from his pocket. "Release." As he waved his hand and threw 2 lightning talismans, the yellow talismans engraved with runes exploded above the ferocious creature. They turned into finger-thick lightning bolts out of thin air and struck the beast's head. The lightning bolts struck the ferocious creature's body, causing its body to constantly stiffen and its running speed to suddenly drop. Even its fur was charred and faintly bloodstains could be seen. Roar! The Siberian tiger fiercely pounced toward the ferocious creature. Its sharp claws finally swept the ferocious creature's body and directly swept it away, leaving several bloody wounds on its body. Tan Xiu secretly sneered. He kept waving the lightning talismans in his hand. Lightning bolts condensed and constantly struck the ferocious creature's body like a storm. Hiss! The ferocious creature was struck dozens of times in succession. Finally, it was on the verge of death and lay on the ground, unable to move. However, Tan Xiu didn't stop and continued to use the lightning talismans to attack again and again. Only when there were only 10 lightning talismans left in his hand did he stop. Outside the array, the corner of Miao Wentong's mouth twitched and a strange expression could be seen in his eyes. He had heard of the term rogue tactics before, but today was the first time he saw it. What Tan Xiu used was completely a rogue tactic. He somewhat felt sad for that ferocious creature. Such a powerful creature had fallen in Tan Xiu's hands. "Brother Miao, your cultivation level is higher. Go into the array and see if the ferocious creature is really dead. Tan Xiu was more cautious than the ferocious creature. He decided to let Miao Wentong check it before dismissing the array. All right. Miao Wentong also had the mentality of caution is the parent of safety. After entering the array, he keenly sensed that he was still in the forest, but there seemed to be a ripple-like wall of qi around him. It was easy to come in, but it would probably be difficult to go out. His speed was not fast, and he still held a sharp dagger in his hand. He came to the front of the ferocious creature that was badly mutilated and exuded a charred smell. The dagger in his hand did not hesitate to pierce its body. No movement. Miao Wentong raised his brows. He reached out to grab the ferocious creature and said aloud, "It's been attacked so miserably. It should be dead." Tang Xiu nodded in response. Just as he was about to remove the array, he suddenly saw that the Amur tiger had also been struck by lightning. His expression slightly moved and he immediately gave up the idea of removing the array immediately. He walked out of the array's core and came to Miao Wentong's front. Just as he was about to reach out to catch the baneful being, the closed eyes of the baneful being suddenly opened. Its sharp claws scratched Miao Wentong's wrist as its body instantly flashed to the side. Miao Wentong covered his wrist and exclaimed in horror, "It's not dead yet? Is it a cockroach?" Tan Xiu was also secretly shocked. However, he had seen many tenacious, ferocious beasts in the immortal world, so he did not lose his mind. Retreating to the array core at the fastest speed, Tan Xiu threw 5 lightning talismans again, which turned into lightning bolts that struck the ferocious creature. Hiss! The ferocious creature was struck on the ground, but it was still alive. Its blue eyes seemed to know who was attacking it. While withstanding the lightning strikes, it faced Tan Xiu, knelt on one knee and nodded repeatedly. "Ha!" Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and shouted in a deep voice, "Do you want to surrender?" The ferocious creature nodded even faster. Tan Xiu fell into silence for a moment. After the lightning strikes ended, he thought for a moment and slowly said, "I can spare your life since you can understand human language and want to surrender to me. However, we must sign a contract. I want to know whether you have cultivated an inner core or not." The ferocious creature struggled to stand up. Although its body was still shivering, it still opened its mouth and spat out a glass ball-sized bead that quietly floated in front of it. Tan Xiu left the array core and looked at the ferocious creature's inner core. He pinched the lightning talisman and approached it. When he was only 2 meters away from the ferocious creature, his left hand pinched dozens of finger seals and his star force fused into his fingertips before he pressed it on the inner core lightning fast. Hiss! The ferocious creature hissed and its body trembled violently for a while before it gradually calmed down. Its blue eyes were full of awe and fear as it looked at Tan Xiu at this moment. It could clearly feel that there was a magical connection between it and Tan Xiu. "Swallow the inner core," Tan Xiu calmly said as he completely relaxed. The ferocious creature opened its mouth and swallowed the inner core. It instantly found that there was a dark red pattern on its inner core. This pattern was like a ticking time bomb. If Tan Xiu wanted to, he could make its inner core explode and scatter its soul with just a thought. Miao Wentong was shocked as he looked at Tan Xiu and the ferocious creature. His lips trembled a few times and he exclaimed, "What did you do, Brother Tang?" "I know a technique to subdue spirit beasts. Since it's willing to surrender to me, I'll subdue it," said Tan Xiu calmly. "Don't worry. It won't dare to hurt me because its inner core will explode with just a thought and it will die a miserable death." "Is it really that magical?" Miao Wentong was shocked. "It's true." Tan Xiu nodded. Miao Wentong opened his mouth. Finally, he steeled his heart and said with a face full of hope, "Brother Tang, can you teach me the technique to subdue spirit beasts? Don't worry, I won't take advantage of you for free. You can tell me your request and I'll find a way to satisfy it." "Are you very rich?" Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he slowly asked. "I can take out a lot." Miao Wentong heavily nodded. "I'll sell it to you for 1 billion. Tan Xiu said. "If you can't take out that much, or if you want to find someone to share the cost, you two can jointly fund it if Xiao Mingjun wants to learn it." Chapter 172. Miao Wenong was overjoyed and said without hesitation, "I believe Brother Xiao will be pleasantly surprised and agree. When we get back to Qingshan town, I will transfer the money to your account." Tan Xiao nodded his head in satisfaction and asked, "Do you still have the healing medicine that you concocted? Its injuries are very serious, so it needs to take some." Miao Wenong carefully took out a small porcelain bottle from his pocket. Tang Xiao took it and poured out a pill from the small porcelain bottle, stuffing it into the mouth of the baneful creature. Then he returned the rest to Miao Wenong and said, "I'll remove the array and let's go back. Let's enter the sinkhole tomorrow. Hopefully, there will be some gains." Miao Wenong smiled and said, "Being able to buy the incantation for subduing spirit beasts from you is already my biggest harvest. Regardless of whether there will be any harvest tomorrow, I will be satisfied." Tan Xiao smiled faintly and did not speak again. Miao Wenong was satisfied, but he was not. Although he had accidentally obtained a spirit beast and sold it for 1 billion yuan using the beast-taming art, what he wanted the most now were precious ores. After returning to the encampment, Xiao Mingjin quickly came to greet him. He loudly asked from far away, "How was it? Did you kill that?" His neck seemed to be choked by a pair of invisible hands. His throat gurgled a few times, but he could no longer make a clear sound. This was because he clearly saw that the thing in Tan Xiao's arms was the ferocious creature that he hated to the core. Miao Wenong quickly went over and explained the cause and effect of the matter. Then he looked at Xiao Mingjin's shocked expression with ridicule and finally said, "How is it? Do you want the beast-taming technique? If you want, each of us will pay 500 million. Xiao Mingjin's breathing became hurried as he said without hesitation, "Yes, only a fool wouldn't. I'll transfer the money to Brother Tang when we get back to Qingshan town." He knew very well how powerful this ferocious spirit beast was, and he was extremely envious that Tan Xiao was able to obtain one. It was worth noting that the ferocious spirit beast's combat power was extremely terrifying. Even with his current strength, he was no match for it. If he could obtain it, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. Miao Wenong said, "Now that the crisis has been resolved, we can relax and sleep. Tomorrow, we'll enter the natural maze array and the sinkhole to see what's inside." Tang Xiao stood beside them and was silent for a while before he said, "Actually, I suddenly don't want to go to that sky cavern you mentioned." Miao Wenong asked. Tang Xiao forced a smile and said, "Before I subdued this spirit beast, I faintly felt a trace of threat. I originally thought that it was this spirit beast that brought it to me. And I found that it was not." Tang and said, "Bye. That. And Tang Wu. That's how I felt when I faced those 3 islands." Miao Wenong was surprised and asked, "Brother Tang, is there something wrong with your perception? Don't tell me you want to back out now?" Things, and said, "One is say want. You want to do to Tang. Tang. What I want to say is that we must pay attention to our safety. Otherwise, we're likely to lose our lives there." Miao Wenong and Xiao Mingjin looked at each other and nodded cautiously. Tan Xiao gave them a very mysterious feeling. Moreover, they always got great harvests every time they were together with Tan Xiao. Therefore, they attached great importance to Tan Xiao's words and actions. The next morning, when the first ray of sunlight shone from the back of the mountain, Tan Xiao came out of the tent and saw 6 big men busy cooking. He secretly envied them. Miao Wenong and Xiao Mingjin's men were the elites of the elites in today's society. Having them at their side would bring them a lot of convenience. Money. Tan Xiao was secretly helpless. Although he sold the beast-taming art for a sky-high price of 1 billion yuan, his company needed money. Kong Xia could not wait to chase him for money every day. Moreover, she still owed Chen Zhizhong too. 5 billion yuan. He had decided to give 500 million yuan to Kong Xia and 500 million yuan to Chen Zhizhong first. In the end, he didn't have much money left on him. Before he came to Qingshan town, he had a few million yuan. But after paying the fees of the 4 butler trainers and buying 5 to 6 jade materials from the jade store in Qingshan town, he had already spent it all. Star City Airport. Long Zhengyu was leaning on the front of his Hummer. He looked at Chu Yi coming out of the exit and waved his hand. Behind Chu Yi, two men each carried a large black suitcase, and their expressions were cold. Young Master Chu, it's fine that you came to Star City, but why did you ask me to pick you up? Last night, I went to sleep in the wee hours of the morning. I almost fell asleep on the way to the airport today. Long Zhengyu yawned and spoke in a bad mood. Chu Yi forced a smile and said, I'm also doing a hard job. If I don't pull you along, my heart will feel unbalanced. Do you see these two black suitcases? The things inside are very valuable. Long Zhengyu was surprised and said, What things? Chu Yi said, Do you remember the matter that Tan Xiu asked us to do before? He gave me a list of hundreds of herbs, and I found dozens of them for him. But I didn't expect it to be so expensive. These two suitcases of herbs cost me nearly 200 million. What? Long Zhengyu didn't know much about the price of herbs. But for herbs worth nearly 200 million, how precious would it be? Chu Yi, when you were with Tan Xiu, didn't you ask him why he needed so many herbs? Chu Yi shook his head and said, This is his private matter. It's not convenient for us to ask. In short, we'll help him as much as we can. Long Zhengyu said with a smile, You're flattering him. Chu Yi rolled his eyes and scolded with a smile, You're not flattering him, are you? If you're not, why did you give him the Southgate Town's King Villa? Long Zhengyu repeatedly waved his hand and immediately changed the topic. I'll call Tan Xiu and ask him where he is now. Let's send it to him directly. Chu Yi forced a smile and said, I've called him, but his phone is off. Long Zhengyu hesitated and said, How about we send it to Southgate Town? If he's not at home, we'll give it to his housekeeper. Chu Yi was surprised and said, Tan Xiu actually has a housekeeper? Long Zhengyu said with a smile, He has a lot of things that you can't even imagine. All right, let's talk slowly on the way to Southgate Town. At a certain upscale residential area in Star City, Su Shangwen was lying on the sofa with lifeless eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. His wife, Zhang Miyun, was sitting on the sofa and crying in front of him. As for their children, Su Xiangfei and Su Jinan, their faces were full of anger and they didn't say a word. The Shangwen real estate had gone bankrupt. It was like a shocking blow to the heavens that struck their whole family dumb. They all knew that Su Shangwen had fallen into the trap set by someone else. The purpose was to destroy the Shangwen real estate and make their family penniless. It's definitely Tan Xiu. He ordered that bastard surnamed Qin to do bad things to our company. Su Jinan suddenly shouted in a flustered and exasperated manner. Zhang Miyun stopped crying. A resentful expression appeared on her face as she angrily shouted, Yes, it's that bastard who deserves to be stabbed 1,000 times. This old lady is going to find him and tear him apart. Su Shangwen raised his head and roared, Shut up! Do you think this father doesn't know that Tan Xiu is the one who ordered Qin Zhizhong to do it? Where's the evidence? Can any of you produce the evidence? Zhang Miyun angrily glared at Su Shangwen and cursed, What are you shouting at us for? If you have the guts, why don't you go find that fucking bastard Tan Xiu? You're such a good for nothing. I thought I could live a happy life with you, but look at the result. Now our family has no money and owes a lot of debts. If we can't collect 80 million yuan by tomorrow night, our whole family will be out of luck. Su Shangwen pointed at Zhang Miyun and angrily cursed, Bitch, you're actually blaming me? If it weren't for you instigating me to invest in that big project, would this father have risked everything and prepared to go all out? Now you think this father has no money? Get lost if you don't have money. Zhang Miyun jumped up from the sofa. With one hand on her waist, she pointed at Su Shangwen and screamed, You bastard! Now that you've lost money, you're blaming me? This old lady told you to go fucking, yet you still want to eat. I can't live like this anymore. This old lady can't stand you, you poor bastard. Divorce. We must divorce. Su Shangwen looked at Zhang Miyun incredulously. He suddenly felt that his wife was so unfamiliar. Before the Shangwen real estate went bankrupt, Zhang Miyun was obedient to him and coaxed him all day long. Now that he had no money, she turned her back on him? And she still wants to divorce him? Ding dong. The doorbell rang. Sujinin angrily ran to the door and forcefully opened it. When she saw several policemen in uniform standing outside the door, the anger on her face froze. "You? Who are you looking for?" Outside the door, a policeman asked in a deep voice, "Is this Zhang Meiyun's house?" Sujinin hesitated. The policeman pushed Sujinin away. After entering the living room, he saw the angry Zhang Meiyun. He directly showed his police badge and said in a deep voice, "Zhang Meiyun, we received a report that you were involved in a hit-and-run case 2.5 years ago. Please come back with us to cooperate with the investigation." Zhang Meiyun was stunned, while Su Xiangfei and Sujinin were also dumbfounded. Su Shangwen, who was standing at the side, suddenly burst into laughter and said, "Zhang Min, Zhang Min, I never thought that you would have such a day like this. Do you despise this father? Do you despise me again? A hit and run is a felony. You want to divorce me? Divorce me then. I'll go to the prison to see you later. Make me die a miserable death." Zhang Meiyun's complexion instantly turned pale as a sheet of paper. Fear flashed in her eyes as she rushed to Su Shangwen and cried bitterly, "I was wrong, honey. It's all my fault just now. I shouldn't have talked nonsense to you out of anger. Please don't blame me. Tell these policemen that it's all a misunderstanding. I didn't hit and run." Chapter 173. Fuck off. Su Shangwen looked at Zhang Meiyun's horrified expression and suddenly felt a strong sense of comfort. He finally saw Zhang Meiyun's true face. This bitch despised the poor and loved the rich. He had lived with her for more than 20 years, yet he only found out today. Tears streamed down Su Yaning's face. Never in her wildest dreams did she expect that a good family would end up like this. Looking at her father's grim expression and her mother's horrified expression, she cried out, "Dad, Mom just said those words out of anger. Don't let it get to your head because of anger. Quickly tell the police that it's all fake. My mom was wrongly accused. She didn't hit someone and fled. Tell them quickly." The policeman looked at Su Shangwen's family with a surprised expression. After a moment of silence, he solemnly said, "You don't need to say anything now. We wouldn't have come here if we didn't have conclusive evidence. Zhang Min, come back with us." After that, he looked at Su Shangwen and lightly said, "If my guess is correct, you're Su Shangwen, the owner of Shangwen Real Estate. Your company has been declared bankrupt due to contract fraud, but the other party has accused you of fraud. The amount is as high as 80 million yuan. If you can't gather 80 million yuan by tomorrow night, I'm afraid that you'll be in jail. You're on your own now." Su Shangwen's body trembled and despair grew inside his heart. It's over. He knew he was done for. Let alone 80 million yuan, he couldn't even come up with 80,000 yuan. Furthermore, the news of his company's bankruptcy had spread in his circle of friends. In this society where monkeys scatter when the tree falls, and everyone pushes the wall when it's down, who would lend him money? Su Shangwen looked blankly at his wife being taken away by the police and the crying appearance of his children. All his strength seemed to have been sucked out in an instant as he slumped on the sofa. "Dad, go find my cousin. He must have a way." Su Xiangfei suddenly stopped crying and hurriedly said, "Cousin?" Su Shangwen blankly looked at his son, not understanding who he was talking about. Su Xiangfei shouted, "Dad, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and find my cousin, Tan Xiu. He knew so many big bosses. He must have a solution. If he really did this, it's because he hates us for looking down on him. As long as we lower our heads and admit our mistakes, he'll definitely let it go." "Tan Xiu?" Su Shangwen smiled bitterly and looked at his son Su Xiangfei in disappointment. He suddenly had an urge to strangle his son. He found it funny because it was the first time he heard his son call Tang Xiu as cousin ever since he was a child. Su Jinin also hurriedly said, "That's right. Dad, let's go find my cousin and my aunt. My aunt is soft, and she will definitely let my cousin save my mother. She might even help us borrow money to settle our debts." Su Shangwen was in despair a moment ago, but now he didn't have a trace of anger. In his mind, he recalled the scenes of him getting along with his younger sister, Su Lingyun, and the mother and son. Suddenly, he realized how shameless he used to be, just like his shameless son and daughter in front of him. The sky wants to rain, and the mother wants to get married. Just let him be. Su Shangwen stiffly stood up and walked back to his room like a walking corpse. He locked the door from the inside and then walked to the bedside table. He opened the drawer and took out a handicraft knife. Then he ruthlessly cut the artery on his wrist. His world began to blur. The last thought in his mind was that if he could do it all over again, he would never want to be a bastard again. Prime Forest Mountain Range. Halfway up the flat mountainside, Tan Xiu, Miao Wenning, and Xiao Mingjin had eaten breakfast and rushed toward their destination. A natural maze array was not a problem for Tan Xiu. When he was in the immortal world, he was not the slightest bit inferior to an array grandmaster. If his cultivation was still there, no matter how profound an array was, he would be able to do it with ease. It went smoothly. The trio passed through the natural maze array and appeared at the edge of the sky crater on the mountaintop. This sky crater was tens of meters deep and more than 10 meters wide. It looked like it was smashed by a meteorite from outer space. The trio looked down from above and could clearly see a few black holes at the bottom. Even if they looked up more than 10 meters, there seemed to be a hole there as well. Go down, Tan Xiu said in a deep voice. Miao Wentung hurriedly stopped Tan Xiu and said with a wry smile, "We can't go down. Our people used to tie a rope around their waist and then slowly went down. But halfway down, a lot of vipers appeared, and there were even a few pythons as thick as a thigh. The second time we came here, we brought a lot of realgar powder, but it didn't work at all. The vipers here are very poisonous, and they seem to have undergone a mutation." Tan Xiu furrowed his brows. He looked at the spirit beast whose injury had healed a lot and asked in a deep voice, "Is it very dangerous down there, little beast?" Little beast. It was the name Tan Xiu gave to this spirit beast. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's question, it hurriedly nodded with fear in its eyes. Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and pondered for a moment. Then he said, "You know the threat of these vipers, yet you're still willing to come here to explore. It means that you've already thought of a way. Tell me, how are we going down?" "Let's find another way," said Miao Wentung. "What do you mean?" asked Tan Xiu. "Since there are many passages down here, I believe there must be a cave entrance on this mountain. Let's look around and maybe we can find it. If we really can't find it, we'll go down from this sky crater. We have a barrel of gasoline in our bag, and we can tie it to a torch. Those vipers are not afraid of realgar powder, but they should be afraid of fire. That's a way." Tan Xiu nodded. For the whole morning, the trio had searched many places. They even searched the steep crevices of the mountain, but the result was disappointing as they couldn't find any cave entrance at all. They regrouped above the sky crater. Tan Xiu grabbed a thick rope and tied it to his waist. He then tied the other end to a tree next to the sky crater and said in a deep voice, "Get me a torch. I'll go down and try." Miao Wentung hesitated and said, "Tang Xiu, you must think about it clearly. It may be really dangerous down there. If those vipers are a threat to you, call us immediately and we'll pull you up." "All right," Tan Xiu replied. Holding the torch, Tan Xiu slowly went down the rope. Soon, he went down to a depth of about 20 meters and was only 20 meters away from the bottom of the sky crater. Hiss, hiss. The hissing sounds of the vipers were keenly transmitted to Tan Xiu's ears. Tan Xiu had already released his spiritual sense and found that there were a total of 5 caves in this sky crater. 4 of them were at the bottom, and the last one was about 10 meters below. The cave was connected to a dark passageway. It was very wide, and it wouldn't be a problem for several people to walk side by side. On the mountain walls of the sky crater, there were at least hundreds of vipers among the green vines. There were also hundreds of vipers and more than a dozen pythons in the 5 cave passages. This place is simply a snake cave. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly and tried to use the torch to approach a few vipers. To Tan Xiu's satisfaction, the vipers felt the high temperature and immediately dodged along the green vines. Very quickly, Tan Xiu landed at the bottom of the sky crater without any mishap. He took out the Luoyang shovel from his waist and dug the ground for 30 minutes. He dug more than 2 meters deep, but he didn't find the shadow of a meteorite. His spiritual sense continued to spread along the 5 cave passages. It had already spread for nearly 200 meters, but he still didn't find anything. Is there no precious ore here? Tan Xiu stopped digging. He looked up at Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin, who were lying on the edge of the sky crater, and shouted, I'll go along the passage and look inside. If there's any danger, I'll immediately come back. You're ready to provide support from above. Brother Tang, I'll go down too. Xiao Mingjin shouted. Just like Tan Xiu, he took the torch and used the rope to go to the bottom of the sky crater. Subsequently, the two of them randomly found a cave passage and quickly went inside. With the assistance of Tan Xiu's spiritual sense, they saw a lot of poisonous creatures along the way, such as venomous snakes, scorpions, and centipedes. But these poisonous creatures were obviously afraid of fire, so they avoided them when they passed by. After moving forward unimpeded for 200 to 300 meters, Tan Xiu's footsteps suddenly stopped. Brother Tang, what's wrong? Tan Xiu's heartbeat sped up. A terrifying aura that made his hair stand erect came from the cave. His spiritual sense didn't find any dangerous creatures, but the aura was especially huge. Can you feel it? Xiao Mingjin heavily nodded and said, I can feel it. It's a very terrifying aura. What should we do? Do we still want to go inside? Tan Xiu gritted his teeth and said, let's go forward. No matter what kind of dangerous creature it is, we won't lose our lives here as long as we escape in time. Escape in time? Xiao Mingjin secretly smiled wryly inside. But he still respected Tan Xiu's intention and continued to move forward. After moving forward for another 100 meters, Tan Xiu's footsteps stopped again. An inconceivable expression was revealed on his handsome face. With the help of the searchlight and torch's light, Xiao Mingjin was keenly aware of the change in Tan Xiu's expression. He quickly asked, what's wrong? Tan Xiu's mouth twitched a few times. He suppressed the shock in his heart and said in a deep voice, I'll give you a choice. If the probability of death is 50%, but there's a heavenly treasure inside, do you choose to risk it or choose to retreat immediately? Xiao Mingjin pondered for a moment and seriously said, how can you catch a tiger cub without entering the tiger's den? I'm willing to take the risk. Tan Xiu said in a deep voice, such being the case, let's go back now. Go back? Xiao Mingjin was confused. Tan Xiu said in a deep voice, yes, let's go back. If we go in like this, we'll definitely die. Let's go back first and prepare some things. When we come back again, we'll definitely have a 50% chance of survival. Xiao Mingjin followed behind Tan Xiu and went back along the original path. At the same time he asked, Brother Tang, did you find something inside this cave? Fire Qilin. Tan Xiu said in a deep voice. Impossible. Xiao Mingjin involuntarily exclaimed, how could there be a legendary mythological beast in this era? Are you sure you're not mistaken? Today's fourth chapter has exploded. I implore brothers and sisters to support me with your monthly votes and recommendation votes. I'm deeply grateful. Under it. Chapter 174. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, I'm absolutely not mistaken. That aura indicated that there's definitely a fire Qilin inside. Believe me, I'm 100% sure. He couldn't tell Xiao Mingjin about his powerful spiritual sense. He also couldn't tell him that he had observed the huge space at the end of the passage with his spiritual sense, as well as the sleeping fire Qilin inside. There were even several hundred square sky sandstones neatly placed near the fire Qilin, and each of them weighed 100 kilograms. He also saw a small bed, a wooden table, and a sparkling and translucent jade box on top of the table, as well as an ancient sword on the side of the table. He had encountered many opportunities in the immortal world. He had ventured into many immortals' caves and obtained a lot of treasures. He didn't expect that he would encounter this kind of immortal's cave on Earth. But he didn't know if it was left behind by a cultivator. As the duo returned to the top of the sky pit, Miao Wenong hurriedly asked, how was it? What harvest did you get inside the cave? Nothing for the time being. We need to prepare some things and return to Qingshan town first. Tan Xiu said. After we have prepared the things we need, the three of us will enter the cave together. Xiao Mingjin asked, Brother Tang, what should we prepare? Tan Xiu said, If the two of you are willing to take the risk with me, then listen to my arrangement. I can't guarantee that we'll come out alive, but I can guarantee that once we come out alive, we'll have a big harvest. Alright. We'll listen to you. Xiao Mingjin and Miao Wentong said at the same time. Tan Xiu nodded and said, we'll think of a way to get a batch of explosives. The quantity doesn't need to be too big. If we can't find it, we'll buy a batch of fireworks. Also, we'll need more ropes. Also, we need to get a batch of boulders to quietly block the 4 cave entrances. Also, before we block the cave entrances, we must secretly arrange some traps inside. A plan emerged in Tan Xiu's mind, but there were too many things that needed to be prepared. Moreover, once the plan was implemented, it would be very difficult to finish it in a few days. However, he had to obtain the sky sandstone. He had obtained this kind of ore in the immortal world before. It was definitely an excellent material for refining weapons. This kind of ore was very rare, and even immortals would view it as a treasure. The next evening, when everyone returned to Qingshan town, Tan Xiu made a list of all the things they needed and handed it over to Miao Wentong and Miao Wentong's subordinates to buy them. Because some of the things on the list couldn't be bought in Qingshan town, they rushed to Cangbei City overnight. Taking advantage of this time, Tan Xiu and the others bought everything they could find in Qingshan town and waited for Miao Wentong and his men to return. Bang bang. In the hotel, someone knocked on the door of Tan Xiu's room. Tan Xiu opened the door and looked at Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin outside. He asked in doubt, "You haven't rested yet?" Miao Wentong smiled and said, "I'm not tired. Why are you resting so early? We're going to the food stalls in town for a drink. Do you want to come?" Xiao Mingjin also laughed and said, "I heard that the food stalls in the town use meat from wild animals on the mountain. This place is close to the mountain, so there are a lot of wild animals here. The taste is very good." Tan Xiu said with a smile, "All right, let's go together then." Suddenly, Tan Xiu recalled that his mobile phone had run out of battery yesterday. He charged it when he returned to Qingshan town, but it still hadn't been turned on until now. Therefore, he took his mobile and rushed to the food stalls in town with the two men. On the road, he turned on his mobile phone. Suddenly, the sound of missed calls and text messages kept ringing. Tan Xiu looked at it and found that aside from Chu Yi and Long Zhengyu's missed calls, there was also a call from his mother, Su Lingyun. As for the text messages, it was from Ouyang Lulu, asking what Tan Xiu was doing. Exploring, Tan Xiu first replied to Ouyang Lulu's text message and then dialed his mother's cell number. "Hello, is this Xiu?" Su Lingyun's urgent voice came from the phone. Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Mom, my mobile phone didn't work before." "What's the matter?" Su Lingyun quickly said, "Xiu, you said you're going to travel. Where are you going to travel? If you can you come back now? Mom has something urgent to talk to you." Tan Xiu was shaken inwardly as he asked with a deep voice, "Mom, don't be anxious. What exactly happened?" Su Lingyun's tone was particularly low as she said, "Your uncle's family had an accident. Your cousin and cousin came to me today." Tan Xiu interrupted Su Lingyun and said, "Mom, you don't need to say anything. I already know. Did Su Shangwen and Zhang Meiyun get arrested by the police? And what awaits them is many years in prison." Su Lingyun hurriedly asked, "Xiu, how did you know?" "Don't tell me." Tan Xiu said, "Yes, I asked someone to do it. Su Shangwen and Zhang Meiyun didn't want to live a good life and went to the hospital to humiliate you. I can't stand them. In my heart, you are my reverse scale. If anyone dares to disrespect you, I will not let them have a good life. I promised you that I would ensure Su Shangwen's safety, but I didn't promise you what kind of life he would have in the future." Su Lingyun was silent for a long while before she bitterly said, "Xiu, no matter how disheartened I am, he's still my blood brother." Actually, it was Zhang Meiyun who was arrested. Su Shangwen committed suicide. Luckily, he was discovered in time and was rescued in the hospital. But it seems that he won't be caught for long. "Suicide?" Tan Xiu frowned and said, "He can't take the blow." "Do you want to die?" Su Lingyun said, "Yeah." Although he was rescued, the critical period is not over yet. "Xiu, Mom is begging you. It's fine if Zhang Meiyun was arrested, but your uncle, Can you help him? He has died once. Maybe he will turn over a new leaf and be a good man in the future. Tan Xiu fell into silence. Su Lingyun had raised him up, and this was the first time she asked him. He wanted to refuse and say that even if Su Shangwen had died once, he was still a dog that couldn't change his ways. But when the words were about to come out of his mouth, he swallowed them back into his stomach. After a long while, Tan Xiu forced a smile and said, "Mom, this is the last time. If he really changes, then it's the best. But if he can't change and is still a bastard, then don't stop me when the time comes." "All right." Su Lingyun hurriedly agreed. Tan Xiu sighed and said, "Mom, I'm now in Dongyuan province, and it will take a few days before I can go back. I'll make a call to arrange Su Shangwen's matter." Su Lingyun hesitated and said, "Xiu, I think you're hiding something from me. I remember you said that you'll tell me something after the college entrance test." Tan Xiu said, "I'll tell you everything when I go back." After ending the call, Tan Xiu rubbed his temples, feeling a bit of a headache. Afterward, he contacted Chen Zhizhong and asked him to let Su Shangwen go. In the following time, Tan Xiu called back Long Zhengyu and Chu Yi. After learning that Chu Yi had sent him a batch of precious medicinal herbs from the imperial capital, Tan Xiu was overjoyed. But then he began to worry about money. Chu Yi didn't tell him how much the batch of medicinal herbs cost, but Long Zhengyu told him that the total value of those herbs was nearly 200 million. Money. Tan Xiu forced a smile as he put away his mobile. Unknowingly, he unexpectedly followed Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin to the food stall, while the two of them went to order food. Secretly shaking his head, Tan Xiu casually found an outdoor table and sat down. This father has really decided to turn over a new leaf. Motherfucker! How can you not wet your shoes if you often stand by the river? This sentence severely taught him a lesson. After we finish drinking today, I'll go to the big city. If I really can't stay outside, this father will go back home and continue to brew wine. A loud and clear voice came from more than 10 meters away. Tan Xiu felt that the voice was somewhat familiar. Looking at the source of the voice, he recognized the person who spoke. It was Scarblade Chang, who had been taught a lesson by him. The people at their table didn't have the dozens of big men they met last time. There were 7 or 8 of them. All of them were middle-aged men, but they were also new faces. "Big Brother Chang, we've already advised you not to do that kind of thing again. After all, it's not the time when you can eat your fill anymore. If something really happens to you, think about sister-in-law and your child. Come, for you to turn over a new leaf, us brothers toast to you. Right? Big Brother Chang is smart and righteous. Even if you're doing a serious business, you'll still prosper in the future. We toast you. Big Brother Chang, if you can't do well outside, then come back and brew wine. We brothers know that your wine brewing level is very high. If worst comes to worst, I'll find a second job. If the wine you brew doesn't sell well, then I'll go to the city a few times to help you sell it." Scarblade Chang looked at these brothers who grew up with him. His face was moved as he raised his glass and spoke with a heroic spirit, "You're all my good brothers. Chang Zi doesn't need to say thank you. Come, my heart is in the wine. Cheers." At the side, a trace of a smile appeared on Tan Xiu's face. A prodigal son turned over a new leaf. Scarblade Chang's nature was not bad. Moreover, he was able to win over a group of brothers and friends. This kind of person was quite capable. If he could turn over a new leaf, he believed that he would definitely have some achievements in the future. Brewing wine? That would be a good way to make a living. Tan Xiu nodded with a smile. Suddenly, his complexion turned sluggish as an idea emerged in his mind. Wasn't he also preparing to brew wine after returning to Star City? If Scarblade Chang could brew wine, why not take him back and ask him to help him brew it? If he could also open a wine shop. As long as he brewed the wine according to his own recipe, he would absolutely be able to brew good wine. When the time came, he wouldn't need to worry about the sales. Moreover, the investment for a wine shop would not cost much money. He was fully capable of starting one. If Scarblade Chang was not suitable to manage it, then it would be the same to Kang Xia. As Tan Xiu thought up to here, he looked at Scarblade Chang again. "Brother Tang, the food and wine have been ordered. This food stall is really good. There are a lot of good things here. Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin came back with a cheerful expression as they sat beside Tan Xiu. Chapter 175. Tan Xiu didn't care much about exotic delicacies. He had two ideas at the moment. The first was to snatch the food from the Qilin's mouth and take out the sky gravel from the cave. Even if he could only take out a few pieces, it would be enough for him to use for a long time. The second was to make money. The newly increased debt of nearly 200 million yuan made his determination to make money even firmer. I've received your money. May I ask if you still have money? Looking at the smiling duo, Tang Xiu once again paid attention to the two of them. He had a lot of good things which were 10,000 times better than the beast taming art. He decided that as long as Xiao Mingjin and Miao Wentong could afford it, he would sell them some things. At the very least, he had to pay off the current debt first. Miao Wentong was confused. I still have some. Brother Tang, are you really short of money? Yes, very powerful. Tan Xiu said. Miao Wentong said with a smile, how much do you need? As long as we have it, you can use it first. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, if you have a lot of money, I intend to make another deal with you. But the premise is that you have enough money. Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin looked at each other and said, it's not a problem to take out 5 billion. 1 billion. Tan Xiu revealed a smile and said, I'll eat a loss and sell you an immortal cultivation technique for 5 billion. How about it? Immortal cultivation technique? Miao Wentong revealed a difficult expression as he forced a smile and said, Brother Tang, if it's something else, perhaps we'd be happy to accept it, such as the beast taming art. But we're all cultivators, and we have our own cultivation technique. Even if you sell us a good cultivation technique, we can't practice it again, right? Xiao Mingjin also nodded and said, it's not impossible to practice two cultivation techniques at the same time. However, I feel that focusing on one type of cultivation technique is the best choice. After all, our energy is limited. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, listen carefully. I'm not talking about a Taoist cultivation technique, but an immortal cultivation technique. Miao Wenong couldn't help laughing and said, Brother Tang, what nonsense are you talking about? How could there be any immortal cultivation method in this world? Tan Xiu turned around and called for the stall's waiter. He asked for a pen and paper, and then began to write. More than 10 minutes later, he had written down a set of ordinary casual cultivation techniques, as well as detailed notes on cultivation. After handing it to Miao Wentong, he indifferently said, I have nothing to say if you think it's not worth 5 billion after you read this cultivation technique. Miao Wentong half believed and half doubted it, while Xiao Mingjin also came forward. Both of them then looked at the immortal cultivation technique written by Tan Xiu in a serious manner. Half a minute later, both of them were surprised. 1 minute later, both of them looked a little shocked. 2 minutes later, the two of them had already subconsciously stood up. Their bodies were trembling as they stared at the cultivation technique in their hands. 5 minutes later, the two of them turned their heads with difficulty and looked at Tan Xiu in shock, unable to speak for a long time. Are you really willing to sell it to us for 5 billion? Miao Wenong finally asked with a trembling voice. Yes. Tan Xiu calmly nodded. Miao Wentong slapped the table and loudly shouted, We'll buy it. 5 billion. Even if we have to sell everything we have, we'll transfer the money to your account within a few days. Xiao Mingjin also loudly said, No need for a few days. I'll contact the company's general manager right now and ask him to transfer the money to your account as fast as possible. Also, Brother Miao and I will split the money equally. More than 10 meters away, Scarblade Chang's table was drinking vigorously when they suddenly heard Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin's shouts, causing them to immediately jump in fright. A big man with a flushed face shouted with dissatisfaction, Hey, you from the next table, don't freak out. You almost scared me to the point of pissing my pants. This father is a coward. If you scared me, you'll get yourself into trouble. Another man also loudly said, Yeah, our heart's endurance is not strong. Don't scare us. 5 billion? Don't even look at the sky when you're bragging. Aren't you afraid of blowing a ghost? If you have 5 billion, why did you come to this place where even birds don't shit? Why did you come here to eat at a food stall? Scarblade Chong turned his head and angrily glared at Xiao Mingjin and Miao Wen. However, when his eyes inadvertently swept over Tan Xiu's smiling face, his eyes suddenly froze. In an instant, Scarblade Chong jumped from his chair and fiercely slapped the heads of the two brothers who just spoke. He then cursed, "Just drink your wine. Why are you making a ruckus? What's wrong with you two brothers talking a bit louder? Let me see if I can scare you to death." The two big men were dumbfounded. They didn't understand what Scarblade Chong meant. Scarblade Chong no longer paid attention to them. Instead, he trotted to the food stall's owner and asked for 2 bottles of the most expensive liquor. He held it with his uninjured hand and came to Tan Xiu with an obsequious smile. He bowed and nodded, Brother, I'm really sorry. These brothers of mine drank a bit too much. Please be magnanimous and don't lower yourself to their level. These 2 bottles of liquor are my apology on their behalf. I hope you can drink to your heart's content." One of Scarblade Chong's brothers was dumbfounded as he looked at Scarblade Chong's actions. After he sobered up from his sluggishness, he forced a smile and called out, "Brother Chong, isn't your speed of turning over a new leaf a bit too fast? You used to be a hero, but how come you've turned into a coward now? Why are you apologizing to them? They should be the ones coming to our table to apologize and offer a toast." "Shut up." Scarblade Chong raised his right wrist that had just been treated and shouted angrily. Miao Wendong and Xiao Mingjin were also confused by Scarblade Chong. They knew that they had lost control of themselves a moment ago, so they shouted a bit loud. But how could this big man with a scar on his face come over and apologize as if he was trying to curry favor with them? The expression in his eyes was as if he had seen something terrible. Tan Xiu lightly said, "Forget it. It's no big deal. I'm very satisfied with your performance." Upon hearing it, Scarblade Chong was immediately overjoyed. He repeatedly nodded and said, "Thank you for your magnanimity, brother. These brothers of mine are rough people. How about I call them over to toast you a few cups?" Although he said so, he couldn't wait to immediately run away in his heart. He had seen how terrifying Tan Xiu was. In his heart, Tan Xiu was absolutely a ruthless and merciless fiend. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "They don't need to come over to toast. But you, I have something to discuss with you in the evening party. After you leave, wait for me for a while. I have something to tell you." What? Scarblade Chong was dumbfounded. He squeezed out a trace of a smile, but it was uglier than crying. He wanted to run away, but he didn't dare to disobey Tan Xiu. He could only nod helplessly. As Scarblade Chong returned to their table, one of the big men asked with a puzzled expression, "Brother Chong, who's that kid? Why do you look like you've seen a ghost when you see him? Do you need to be trembling with fear?" Scarblade Chong gulped down his saliva. He turned his head and glanced at Tan Xiu. After finding that Tan Xiu didn't look at him, he felt a bit relieved. He poked his head out and shouted in a low voice, "All of you, shut up. Do you see my broken wrist? It's that guy who did it. There were more than a dozen of us at that time, and we were all beaten down by him in a few moves. I pointed a gun at him, and it was easily taken away by him. Do you think that just you people would be his opponent?" Hiss! The other big men at the table sucked in a mouthful of cold air one after another. They had heard the story from Scarblade Chong before, but they didn't expect that they would actually encounter that ruthless and merciless person here, who even robbed them. Cold sweat slowly appeared on the foreheads of the two big men who had just opened their mouths to stir up trouble. They looked at Scarblade Chong with grateful eyes. "I've seen his 2 friends. They're staying in the hotel in our town. Also, I'll tell you that they have a lot of bodyguards around them." A big man wanted to say something but hesitated. "But what?" Scarblade Chong asked with a confused expression. The big man said, "I don't know where these people came from, but they're definitely not ordinary people. Those 2 people and their bodyguards seem to have entered the Prime Forest mountain range. Later, they had a lot of casualties. What I said is true. It's death and serious injuries. My wife works as a waitress in that hotel. You all know that my wife saw with her own eyes that the dead people were all taken away by off-road vehicles. The seriously injured ones didn't leave. What's miraculous is that in just 2 or 3 days, their injuries were more or less healed. So strange. Scarblade Chong and the others were stunned. Listening to this matter, it was absolutely too strange. But they secretly rejoiced that they didn't really infuriate Tang Xiu's group. An hour later, Tan Xiu trio had eaten and drank to their heart's content. Before they could pay the bill, the food stall's owner told the trio that their bill had been paid by Scarblade Chong. Tan Xiu looked at Scarblade Chong, who was waiting alone at another table. He then said to the Miao Wenong duo, "You go back first. I have some private matters to deal with." Alright. Miao Wenong and Xiao Mingjun complied and strolled back to the hotel. Tan Xiu's ability was very great, so they didn't worry that Tan Xiu would have an accident. Inside the food stall, Tan Xiu waved to Scarblade Chong. After he came over, he pointed to the chair opposite him and said with a smile, "Have a seat." Scarblade Chong sat down with an obsequious smile, but he felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. He asked, "Brother, you asked me to stay. Is there something you need?" Tan Xiu said, "I'm very satisfied with your performance today. You can turn over a new leaf, which shows that you've listened to my words. So, I intend to give you a chance." Scarblade Chong was confused. "Chance? Chance?" Tan Xiu asked, "I heard you can brew wine? And your skill is good?" Scarblade Chong quickly said, "It's my ancestral wine-making skill. Before I was 25, I followed my father to brew wine. After he passed away, I gave up my family's winery. All day long, I mixed with a group of local ruffians. Later, I mixed with a bit of fame and became a big brother, so I got carried away. If it weren't for you teaching me a lesson, I'm afraid I would have made mistakes again and again, causing big troubles in the future." Chapter 176. Tan Xiu calmly looked at the forced smile on Scarblade Chong's face. He was very satisfied inwardly as he nodded and said, "I heard that you're married and have a wife and a child?" Scarblade Chong said, "I've been married for 8 or 9 years. My child is already in elementary school. In order to give him a good education, I sent him to a key primary school in the city. My wife also went there to take care of him." Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Since your wife and child have been properly settled, do you want to have a stable and promising career? If you need, I can give you some directions." Scarblade Chong was surprised. "What directions?" Tan Xiu said with a smile, "I have an ancient wine-making recipe. If you can brew the wine I need according to the requirements, I can build a winery and let you manage it." "I can build a winery and let you manage it?" Scarblade Chong curiously said, "You? How much are you going to invest to build a winery?" Tan Xiu said with a smile, "I can't say for sure." "I can't say for sure," said Tang Xiu with a smile. "However, I need to set up a winery. At the very least, it has to be a large-scale winery. As long as the production can keep up, there won't be a problem with sales. In addition, you can be the factory director. I will put the winery under the name of my company." Tan Xiu said, "The Magnificent Tang Corporation." Scarblade Chong asked again, "Your company is?" Scarblade Chong had never heard of this name, so he nodded and said, "Can you give me some time to think about it? After all, this is a big deal." Tan Xiu said, "Leave my cell number. I'll be here for a few days. Before I leave, I hope you can give me an answer. That's right, if you decide to work for me, you must return to Star City with me. The Magnificent Tang Corporation is in Star City, so I'm going to build the winery there." "Alright." Scarblade Chong nodded. The next day at noon, Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjun's men bought the things they needed from Songbei City and returned to Qingshan Town. They didn't get explosives, but they got a lot of fireworks. A group of 9 people. Once again entering the Prime Forest Mountains. This time, Tan Xiu didn't let Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjun's men stay halfway up the mountain. Instead, he brought them to the Sky Cavern and asked them to help him bring the boulders and all the things that had been prepared down with ropes. 2 whole days. Under Tan Xiu's arrangement, everything was ready. While standing in the Sky Cavern, Miao Wenong asked, "Everything is ready now, Brother Tang. Our people have also left according to your order. What should we do next? Wait, said Tan Xiu. Wait. Miao Wentong asked in confusion. Tan Xiu said, after a few days, I can feel the changes in your and Xiao Mingjin's aura, indicating that you have begun to cultivate the immortal cultivation technique I sold to you. However, your foundation is too weak. If you want to completely raise the quality of your true essence by a level, I'm afraid it will take a lot of time. From now until tomorrow morning, all we have to do is rest and restore ourselves to peak condition. Tomorrow, whether we live or die will depend on ourselves. Understood. Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin nodded at the same time. The next day, at dawn, Tan Xiu's group of 3 once again appeared at the bottom of the sky cavern. They wore helmets with searchlights and held torches in their hands. 3 ropes were put down from the top of the sky cavern. They were prepared to use them to escape. On their waists, there was a nylon rope bag. Miao Weneng, 2 minutes after we go in, you ignite the gunpowder fuse. The sound of the fireworks will attract the fire qilin inside. When the time comes, we can take the opportunity to get the things inside. Remember, your responsibility is to be responsible for supporting us. Later, you will prepare a big bamboo basket and tie it to the rope. When we ask you to pull it, you will pull it up. Tan Xiu instructed. Miao Wentong said, Don't worry. I'll remember your arrangement in my heart. Tan Xiu and Xiao Mingjin looked at each other. Holding the torches, they walked toward the reserved cave passage. 2 minutes later, they clearly heard the sound of fireworks exploding. It's now. Tan Xiu, who had been observing the fire qilin inside with his divine sense, found that the fire qilin rushed toward the source of the sound. His and Xiao Mingjin's speed instantly erupted. Quickly grab the things. After Tang Xiu rushed into the spacious cave, he immediately ran to the wooden table, grabbed the jade box and the ancient sword on it, and stuffed them into the bag he had prepared. Then he sprinted to the sky sandstones and easily stuffed the 2 pieces of sky sandstones weighing 50 kilograms into the bag. His strength was great, but Xiao Mingjin's strength was even greater than his. After grabbing these things, Tan Xiu didn't hesitate. His figure was as fast as lightning as he dashed toward the passage they came from. Xiao Mingjin's movement was also very fast. He quickly put the 3 sky sandstones into the nylon rope bag. He also grabbed one in his hand and followed behind Tan Xiu, rushing toward the passage they came from. From beginning to end, the 2 of them didn't take more than 10 seconds. When they sprinted to the bottom of the sinkhole, Tan Xiu immediately put the nylon rope bag into the big bamboo basket tied with a rope. Then he took the 100-pound sky sandstone from Xiao Mingjin's hand and clamped it under his armpit. Then, he began to climb up along the rope. Xiao Mingjin's movement was also very fast. He wrapped the nylon rope bag around his hand and quickly climbed up the sinkhole. They were racing against time, fighting for their lives against the god of death. Just as they climbed to the top of the sinkhole, Miao Wentong pulled up the big bamboo basket. At this moment, a deafening roar came from the hole at the bottom of the sinkhole. Run! Run with all your strength. As long as we escape from the natural maze, we will be safe. Tan Xiu held the sky sandstone and ran with all his strength. Xiu! 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 The 3 figures were like ghosts in the mountain forest. Roar! Just as Tan Xiu and the other 2 rushed into the maze, a monstrous heat wave surged from behind. That even louder roar shook the 3 people's eardrums and made them feel a dull pain. While Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin were running, they turned their heads and glanced behind them. Suddenly, the 2 of them were shocked. They clearly saw a 4 to 5 meter tall fire qilin, whose whole body was burning with flames, jumping out of the sinkhole. Run! The 2 of them were scared out of their wits. Their potential was stimulated in that instant. Their speed increased, and they were nearly twice as fast as Tan Xiu. After they sprinted to Tan Xiu's side, the 2 of them tacitly used their empty hands to grab both sides of Tan Xiu's shoulders. Fuck! The moment the 3 of them were about to rush out of the natural maze, a burning sensation pounced on their back. In a flash, the clothes on their back were burned to ashes, and the skin on their back was burnt to a pulp. Run, run, run. At this moment, Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin only had this thought in their minds. They wished they could grow a few more legs and run away as fast as possible. Regarding Tan Shio's words that they would be safe as long as they could escape the natural maze, they had completely forgotten about it. Only after they sprinted to the foot of the mountain did they sober up from the thought of running away. They stopped and turned their heads to look at the back. They found that the fire Qilin didn't chase after them. Only then did their hearts, which were hanging high in the air, calm down. Phew, I almost died. The two of them put down Tan Shio. Miao Wentong's complexion was pale as he said with a sigh. Tan Shio looked at the two of them with a grateful expression and said, "Thank you for saving me. If you didn't take me to run away, I'm afraid I would have died in the hands of that fire Qilin." Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin looked at each other and suddenly burst into laughter. They had just survived a disaster. It made them especially excited. They even felt that after this battle, their relationship with Tan Shio had become closer. Miao Wentong said with a smile, "Brother Tang, if it weren't for your arrangement, I'm afraid we wouldn't have gotten anything from inside. Maybe we would have lost our lives inside. So, we don't need to thank each other. That fire Qilin's flame is really fucking powerful. My back hurts too much." Xiao Mingjin also said with a smile, "It's very painful, but I think it's worth it. Let's hurry up and leave this place. In case that fire Qilin rushes out of the maze and chases after us, we won't be able to escape." At this moment, Tan Shio also felt the pain on his back. But he didn't care about it and said with a smile, "That fire Qilin can't come out. This natural maze is 10 times more powerful than the maze arranged by immortal cultivators. If it could come out, it would have come out long ago. Anyways, let's leave this place early and go back to divide the treasures. Let's go." The three of them no longer stayed and rushed toward Qingshan town at lightning speed. After a day of traversing the mountains and ridges, the three of them were exhausted, but they still rushed back to Qingshan town in the evening. Their speed was twice faster than when they left. In the hotel, Tan Shio happily took a bath and then changed into clean clothes. Just as he walked out of the door, he saw Xiao Mingjin also coming out of his room. The two of them looked at each other and smiled as they knocked on Miao Wentong's door. "Quick, come in." Miao Wentong opened the door and said while wiping his wet hair with a towel. After the two of them entered, their gazes fell on the 2 nylon bags in the corner, as well as the sky sandstone. Tan Shio walked over and took out the sky sandstones from the 2 bags. There were a total of 6 sky sandstones, an ancient sword, and a sparkling and translucent jade box. The sky sandstones were easy to divide, with 3 people each getting 2. As for the ancient sword, Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjin were not interested, so their gazes were focused on the jade box. Only Tan Shio picked up the ancient sword and looked at it. A trace of a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. It was not an immortal sword, but it was a flying sword used by a cultivator. Although he did not know why this flying sword was left in the cave, Tan Shio still accepted it with a smile. He was confident that after his re-refining he could definitely refine a top-grade flying sword. Perhaps in the immortal world, a top-grade flying sword was considered as trash. But in this world, it was a rare treasure. Finally, Tan Shio's wooden pipe fell on top of the sparkling and translucent jade box. This jade box was 30 centimeters long, 15 centimeters wide, and 10 centimeters high. There was a beautifully carved pattern on it. "Open it and take a look," Miao Wentong whispered. Chapter 177. The crystal-clear jade box's lid was opened. A fragrant aroma overflowed and filled the hotel room. Suddenly, Tan Shio, Miao Wentong, and Xiao Mingjin's spirit shook. Their whole body felt comfortable and their pores relaxed. 2 scarlet pills were quietly lying inside the jade box. The rich medicinal fragrance came from these 2 pills. "This is..." Miao Wentong turned to look at Tan Shio. In his opinion, Tan Shio was too mysterious. He even had an immortal cultivation technique and could casually sell the beast-taming art. He was definitely knowledgeable. What a pity! This time, he was disappointed. Tan Shio slightly frowned. He shook his head and said, "I've seen thousands of pills, but I can't recognize the name of this pill and its effect." Miao Wentong hesitated. "We don't know what this pill is, and we don't even know its medicinal effect. How can we dare to take it? Xiao Mingjun also nodded and said, yeah. Just by smelling the medicinal fragrance of this pill, we know that it's not an ordinary pill. But we don't know its medicinal effect. If we take it rashly, there may be some side effects. If by any chance it's harmful to us, then the loss outweighs the gain. Tan Xiu said, give me a knife. Miao Wentong was confused. What do you want a knife for? Tan Xiu said, to taste the medicine. Taste the medicine? Miao Wentong stared blankly for a moment before he immediately grabbed a sharp knife. Tan Xiu's fine control of his strength was extremely precise. He used the tip of the knife to pick up a small piece of the pill and rolled the tip of his tongue into his mouth. After slowly closing his eyes, he silently tasted the composition of the pill and its medicinal effect. How is it? What kind of medicinal effect is it? Miao Wentong saw Tan Xiu open his eyes and hurriedly asked. Tan Xiu forced a smile and said, I've taken a kind of pill called the Myriad Beasts pill. It's a kind of immortal pill that has been refined by collecting thousands of kinds of spirit beasts' blood essence and matching them with thousands of medicinal herbs for 99 years. Its effect is to enhance the cultivator's cultivation, causing their cultivation to soar. Although the elixirs in this jade box are worlds apart from the 10,000 beasts pill, they are still extremely effective for your cultivation. Blood essence of 10,000 types of spirit beasts? 10,000 kinds of medicinal herbs? 81 years? Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjun looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression. They rolled their eyes at Tan Xiu in their hearts. They had seen people who could brag, but they had never seen someone who could brag to such an extent. They were all cultivators, and as their cultivation increased, their lifespan would also increase. However, they had never heard of anyone who could concoct pills for a full 81 years. The Arabian Nights. Miao Wentong asked, can it really increase our cultivation? Really? Tan Xiu answered affirmatively. Xiao Mingjun asked, no side effects? Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment before slowly saying, for you, it might be a little. Xiao Mingjun quickly asked, what side effects? A smile was revealed on Tan Xiu's face as he said with a faint smile, with your current cultivation, if you dare to take it directly, it's very likely that your body will explode due to the huge medicinal efficacy and you will die. What? Both of them were dumbfounded. Their current cultivation had reached a very high level, yet they could explode and die just by taking this pill? Just how strong was the medicinal power contained in this pill? Miao Wentong gulped down his saliva and asked, Brother Tang, when do you think it's appropriate for us to take it? Tan Xiu said, at least, you have to wait until your cultivation has increased by 2 levels. Both of them secretly smiled wryly. At their current level, it would be very difficult for them to increase their cultivation by 1 level. It might take several years or even decades. If they wanted to take this pill, they would need to increase their cultivation by at least 2 levels. How long would they have to wait? Tang Xiu said, these 2 medicinal pills, you two can share them. It has no effect on me. However, this jade box is mine. I'll use it to store the pills later. That's not good, right? Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjun looked at each other with a bit of hesitation. Tan Xiu said, I got that ancient sword, so it can be considered as a good harvest. Moreover, even if I get a pill, I don't know when I'll be able to take it. Both of them thought about it and felt that Tan Xiu's words were reasonable. With their current cultivation, if they wanted to take this pill, they would need to increase their cultivation by 2 levels. And with Tan Xiu's level, it would probably take several decades. However, this pill was, after all, a treasure. A pill that could make their bodies explode and die should be regarded as a miraculous panacea, right? A man of temperament is neither selfish nor greedy. Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingjun secretly sighed in their hearts. Even though Tan Xiu was half their age, they were still full of respect for Tan Xiu from the bottom of their hearts. Xiao Mingjun solemnly picked up the pill that Tan Xiu had just dug out and said, Brother Tang, since you said so, we won't be unreasonable. If you need anything in the future, don't hesitate to ask us. I and old Miao owe you a favor. Miao Wenong also nodded and said, that's right. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have been able to get this miraculous panacea. will remember this favor. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, we're cooperating. This is just a matter of distribution. It's not a favor. However, you must give me the money as soon as possible. I'm going to return to Star City tomorrow. I need the money for a lot of things. Upon hearing this, both of them grabbed their phones at the same time. The previous 1 billion, plus the later one, 5 billion, were transferred quickly. After making the arrangements, they told Tan Xiu that the money would be transferred to his account before tomorrow evening. Brother Tang, what kind of material are these ores that we snatched from the sky cavern? I have some knowledge about precious ores, but I've never seen this kind of ore. Looking at the uniform and neat cut, it shouldn't be a good thing, right? Xiao Mingjin asked as his eyes shifted to the sky sandstone after receiving the medicinal pills. Tan Xiu said, remember my words today. These ores are much more precious than the medicinal pills you've obtained. In case the news of you obtaining the sky sandstone is leaked out, those powerful cultivators who know about the sky sandstone will be aware of it. I'm afraid that they will be envious and will most likely snatch it. Xiao Mingjin exclaimed, it's more precious than the medicinal pills? How is this possible? It's just an ore. At most, it can only be used to refine some weapons. It won't be of much benefit to us, right? Tan Xiu said lightly, if this ore falls into the hands of a supreme powerhouse, can it be used to forge a divine tool? Xiao Mingjin's pupils shrunk and Miao Wenong couldn't help but shiver. Divine tool? This ore can be used to forge a divine tool? They knew the classification of weapons. From the lowest common weapons to magic tools that could cut iron like mud, spiritual tools that had spirituality, treasured tools that could be absorbed into the body, and the legendary immortal tools used by the immortals. After that, there were the divine tools used by the deities. If they could have a treasured tool, they would probably wake up laughing even in their dreams, let alone a divine tool used by the deities. Brother Tang, you seem to know a lot? Xiao Mingjin hesitated for a moment before he spoke in a very euphemistic manner. Tan Xiu knew that he had revealed too many things to the two of them, causing them to be curious about his identity. However, his return from the immortal world was his biggest secret. Except for Gu Xiaoxue and Ji Qimei, he couldn't let anyone else know about it. Read 10,000 books and travel 10,000 miles. If you have more time in the future, you can read more records in ancient books. Maybe it will bring benefits to your future cultivation. But sometimes, it was not a killing weapon, but a means of self-protection. Tan Xiu returned to his room with the things assigned to him. He took out his mobile and looked at it. Apart from Ouyang Lulu's dozens of text messages, there were no missed calls. He was somewhat disappointed, and also somewhat helpless. He wanted to wait for Scarblade Chang's call because he needed someone to help him brew wine. The bigger the business, the more serious the lack of money became. In this world of human relations, the wine market made him see the huge profits that existed. If he could build a large winery, he would definitely be able to make a lot of money. He firmly believed that good wine need not be afraid of the deep alley. I'm short of talents. Tan Xiu rubbed his temples. He was not sleepy at all as he came to the window and looked at the dark night outside. His eyesight was good, even the darkness couldn't block his vision. He clearly saw several stray cats on the street, wandering in front of the trash can not far away. Suddenly, a list emerged in his mind. It was the list given by Yuan Zhengxian, which recorded the information about the retired Special Forces soldiers. It seems that there is a person named Wang Ming who lives in Songbei City. Tan Xiu blinked his eyes, and his heart instantly made a decision. He wanted to meet this Wang Ming. If his character was good, he would use him. The next morning, the sky had just turned bright. Tan Xiu carried his luggage and came to the hotel's entrance. Looking at Xiao Mingjin and Miao Wentong waiting outside, he asked, "Are you also leaving today?" Miao Wentong's mood was not good. He nodded and said, "Yes. Our purpose of coming here has been achieved, so it's time to go home. Although the harvest this time is great, the loss is also very heavy. After we go back, arrange the families of the victims." Tan Xiu said, "Yes, give them some compensation and take care of them later." Miao Wentong said, "Don't worry. We're well aware of it. Let's go. In any case, you're going to Zhangbei City, so I'll take you there. Alright. Tan Xiu nodded and looked at Miao Wentong's men opening the trunk of an off-road vehicle. He then put his bulging travel bag into the trunk. Wait a minute. Scarblade Chang's voice came from the corner not far away. Tan Xiu looked toward the source of the voice and found Scarblade Chang smoking a cigarette. He threw the cigarette butt on the ground and fiercely stamped it with his foot as he strode toward them. There were more than a dozen cigarette butts at the place where he just stood. It was obvious that he had stayed there for a long time. Have you thought about it? Tan Xiu calmly asked. Scarblade Chang said, I've thought about it. But I want to know about my salary. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment before he slowly said, 10% shares, plus an annual salary of 1 million yuan. But the premise is that you not only become the factory director, but also a technician. Today's 4th chapter has exploded. I'm crying for a monthly vote. Perhaps Quiet Night's psychological quality is really bad. Today, she was really disgusted by the bad reviews in the book review section. People with 0 fans came to the book review section to hurl abuse at her, and they didn't even allow people to delete their reviews. What kind of logic is this? It's like stealing someone's things and then finding the original owner to scold the quality of the things. This quality is really high. Anyway, I'm going to sleep. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.